Chapter 524. Guqin, come. Chu Quanren let out a soft roar, and the Guqin Daoist rhyme that soared into the sky instantly triggered the Emperor weapon, Spring Thunder. The spring thunder that countless Guqin cultivators had tried so hard to resonate with began to vibrate violently. A majestic Guqin Daoist rhyme that was mixed with Emperor's aura erupted and resonated with Chu Quanren's Guqin Daoist rhyme. The Emperor weapon, Spring Thunder, turned into a blue ray of lightning and disappeared from where it was, heading towards Chu Quanren. In the blink of an eye, the Emperor weapon, Spring Thunder, pierced through the painted ghost's world of painting and flew towards Chu Quanren. Wherever it went, thousands of ghosts perished. The lightning stopped in front of Chu Quanren and turned into the Spring Thunder. It was blue in color, with a crystal-clear body, beautiful patterns, and extraordinary Daoist rhyme. Everything showed how extraordinary this monarch weapon was. The prideful Emperor weapon was now floating docilely in front of Chu Quanren as if it was waiting for him to play. Chu Quanren gently stroked the Spring Thunder's Guqin strings and murmured, "Acknowledge me as your master, and I shall use you to play the most beautiful music in this world." The Spring Thunder's Guqin body trembled slightly as if it was responding. Meanwhile, all the Guqin cultivators outside the world of painting were dumbfounded at the sight. They had tried their best but could not make the Spring Thunder budge at all, yet Chu Quanren just played and the Spring Thunder immediately went to acknowledge him as its master. The difference between them was too obvious. I can't believe there's such a powerful Guqin Daoist in this world. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Even the Sea Clan head and a few other cultivators who stood at the pinnacle of Guqin Daoism were shocked by the scene before them. If it was just a simple Spring Thunder acknowledging him as its master, they would not be so surprised. However, the Spring Thunder's method of acknowledging him as its master was a challenge to their mental state. So what if you have the help of an Emperor weapon? With the Guqin demon and the painted ghost working together, no one in this world can defeat you. The Guqin demon yelled. His expression gradually became crazed, and so did his Guqin music. It was the same for the painted ghost. Using his spiritual power as ink, he continuously painted all kinds of terrifying evil spirits. Chu Quanren placed all 10 fingers on the Spring Thunder's Guqin strings. Have a taste of the celestial demonic music. With a clang, the Guqin music echoed. The first movement of the 8 demonic chords, boundless heaven and earth. The majestic sound of the vast expanse carried the power of heaven and earth as it impacted the world within the painting. The second song, Storm in the City. The sound of the zither transformed into countless wind blades, forming a terrifying storm that swept out and crushed the tens of thousands of ghosts. The third tune, Huang Zhong de Lu. The ancient sound of the zither exploded and pushed the zither demon back again. The fourth movement, Ambush from 10 sides. The sound of the zither came from all directions, crazily attacking the world in the painting. The fifth song, Swallowing 10,000 Li. The sixth song, Raging waves beating the shore. The seventh song, Echoes of heaven and earth. During the seventh song, the entire world in the painting could no longer withstand the increasingly terrifying zither notes. Heaven and earth shook at the same time, and the world in the painting completely shattered. Both zither devil and painting ghost were instantly severely injured by this terrifying power. However, Chu Quanren's Guqin music did not stop. The sound of the zither reverberated between heaven and earth. At this moment, countless people looked at the figure who was playing the Guqin, and there was nothing else in their eyes. There seemed to be only one person and one zither left in the world. The sound of the Guqin reverberated, and everyone felt as if their ears had gone deaf. They could no longer hear anything. However, their souls were trembling uncontrollably. The feeling that Chu Quanren's Guqin music brought to them had surpassed their senses and reached their souls. Final 8 celestial demonic chords, grand note of silence. The final 8 celestial chords resounded, and an indescribable surge of Guqin Daoist rhyme erupted like a torrent. It was silent, but it was earth-shattering. Grand note of silence, grand note of silence. This is the true grand note of silence. The Shi'in sect leader looked at Chu Kuangren with awe in her eyes. The reason why the Shi'in sect was called the Shi'in sect was because they believed in the simplicity of the great Tao and the grand note of silence. However, no one in the Shi'in sect had been able to do it for so many years. Now, she was witnessing it from an outsider. Grand note of silence, the majestic and boundless Guqin Daoist rhyme instantly erupted and landed on the zither demon and painting ghost. The two peak quasi-emperors could no longer hold on under such a strong force. They were severely injured on the spot and were on their last breaths. Their boundary emperor bodies had been damaged to the point where they could no longer be repaired. The two of them lay on the ground, their brushes broken, and their Guqin strings broken. The celestial demonic cords, it really is the celestial demonic cords. The zither demon looked at Chu Kuangren before he died, but there was not much resentment in his eyes. All he felt was an endless yearning, and a kind of satisfaction. The one who can play such Guqin music, tell me your name. The zither demon looked at Chu Kuangren and asked curiously. Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, Chu Kuangren. Huh, it might not be a bad thing to die to this kind of Guqin music, are you satisfied? Knowing the Tao in the morning, one can die in the evening. The zither demon said calmly as the hostility on his face dissipated. In the end, he died with satisfaction. As for painting ghost, he did not feel the same way as he did. After all, he was a painter, so he did not feel the same way as the zither demon. He tried his best to take out a great shift talisman from his yin and yang ring, intending to crush it and leave. However, at that moment, a foot stepped on his wrist and kicked the great shift talisman away. Chu Kuangren looked at him and did not say anything. He pointed his finger and a ray of sword chi shot out, ending his opponent's last chance of survival. In the end, he kept their yin and yang rings. He had gained quite a lot this time. The Spring Thunder Saber recognizing him as its owner was his biggest gain. With this emperor weapon and his 8 celestial demonic cords, it would become one of Chu Kuangren's strongest techniques. Congratulations, Brother Chu, for gaining the emperor weapon's recognition. The Hope Sound sect master walked in front of Chu Kuangren with a fanatical look in her eyes. His demeanor was completely different from his previous indifferent demeanor. Brother Chu? Do you know this person, Hope Sound sect master? The illusory sound sect master asked curiously. Of course, Brother Chu is an honored guest of the Hope Sound sect, the Hope Sound sect master said with a smile. Chu Kuangren was even more intrigued when he heard that. He had been staying in the Hope Sound sect for a few days now, but other than the first time he met the Hope Sound sect master, no one paid any attention to him. Was he considered an honored guest? However, he did not say much. After all, Morong Xian was still in a relationship with Yang Shiyun, and they could very well become in-laws in the future. Since the Spring Thunder Saber has recognized you as its owner, you are now an honored guest of the Hope Sound sect. The Sea clan also welcomes you anytime, Brother Chu. A few boundary emperors expressed their desire to befriend Chu Kuangren. Putting aside Chu Kuangren's unparalleled musical Tao cultivation base, his strength alone was enough for them to befriend him. I can already tell that Brother Chu is a dragon among men back at the Cloud Pavilion. You're indeed extraordinary. That's right. Brother Chu, you've killed the zither demon. You've gotten rid of a great threat for our musical Tao. The other musical Tao cultivators also stepped forward to compliment him. However, there was one person who stared at Chu Kuangren with a cold look in his eyes. That person was Jian Chongfeng of the swordsmen. He looked at Chu Kuangren and sneered. Everyone, befriending someone depends on the person. If you make a mistake, you may lose your life. Chapter 525. Everyone, if you make a mistake, you may lose your life. Jian Chongfeng said coldly. Upon hearing his words, everyone had a strange look on their faces. They looked at Chu Kuangren, then at Jian Chongfeng, trying to guess what he meant. Did Chu Kuangren have a grudge against the swordsman? If I'm not mistaken, you must be the Chu Kuangren who killed the Sima clan head and the others at Sky Lake Mountain and stole the Icy Lotus, am I right? Yes, that's me. Chu Kuangren nodded with a playful smile on his face. His eye of revelation was already in operation, analyzing all the information about Jian Changfeng. The swordsman's top-notch sky pride, dual mastery of the guqin and sword, and his combat strength was comparable to a top-notch sage ruler. Not bad, he was considered a top-notch sky pride, but unfortunately, he was nothing compared to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren wanted to see what Jian Changfeng was up to. You're now on the swordsman's blacklist. You better watch out for yourself. As soon as Jian Changfeng finished speaking, he turned into a sword ray and flew away. Although he was a top-notch sky pride, he knew he was no match for Chu Kuangren after witnessing his combat strength. The only reason he showed up was to warn the Sea family, Illusory Sound sect, and a few other orthodoxies. Chu Kuangren also saw through his opponent's plan. He had to admit that his opponent's move was very effective. The forces and musical cultivators who wanted to befriend Chu Kuangren earlier were shocked when they heard that Chu Kuangren had a grudge against the swordsman, and they immediately stayed away from him. They were as cold as they had been earlier. Some of them even looked at Chu Kuangren as if he was a dead man. Offending the swordsman in the emperor's path was no different from courting death. Brother Chu, just pretend that I didn't say anything. The seven-string guqin society has nothing to do with you. The Illusory Sound sect master then looked at the spring thunder in his opponent's hand and said, "This emperor weapon, please, why, you want to go back?" Before the Illusory Sound sect master could finish his sentence, Chu Kuangren spoke on his behalf. He said playfully, "Didn't the Guqin Society organize this banquet to find a new owner for the Emperor weapon? Now that the Emperor weapon has recognized me as its owner, you want to go back? Do you have no shame?" Upon hearing Chu Kuangren's words, the Illusory Sound sect master's expression turned grim, but he had nothing to say. Unable to get it back, and unable to defeat him, the three guild leaders of the Guqin concert could not do anything to Chu Kuangren. Humph. The Illusory Sound sect master snorted coldly and left. Meanwhile, the Hopein clan leader looked at Chu Kuangren with a look of pity in her eyes. "It's such a shame that a musical Daoist genius like you has offended the swordsman." She was already thinking about how to distance herself from Chu Kuangren and the others. After leaving Seven Flux City, Jian Changfeng passed by a mountain range. All of a sudden, a strange fluctuation appeared in the void. His keen senses told him that something was amiss. A quasi-emperor longsword appeared in his hand, and he coldly scanned the surroundings. "Who is it? Show yourself." Tisk tsk, as expected of a direct descendant of the fourth elder. "To be able to detect me." A pitch-black shadow appeared beside Jian Changfeng. That person wore a long black robe and exuded a treacherous aura. When this person appeared, Jian Changfeng felt that the surrounding temperature had dropped significantly. Shadow Blade Master? Jian Changfeng recognized the attire of the person before him. It was the most powerful and secretive troop of the swordsmen, the Shadow Blade Master. "That's right. I'm the Shadow Blade Master, the Grudge Blade Master. Why have you suddenly appeared in front of me?" Jian Changfeng put away his long sword and said, "To be honest, I have a small favor to ask of you." "Oh, the Shadow Blade Master is asking for my help? That's interesting. Tell me about it." "It's about Chu Kuangren." After the Myriad Zither banquet ended, Chu Kuangren returned to the Hope Sound sect. However, not long after he returned, the Hope Sound sect leader came looking for him. "I've only just returned, and Brother Lin is already here. What's the matter?" Chu Kuangren smiled at the Hope Sound sect leader. Since the Hope Sound sect leader's surname was Lin, Chu Kuangren had always addressed her as Brother Lin. "I'm here to ask Brother Chu and the people of the Black Heaven sect to leave the Hope Sound sect immediately." The Hope Sound sect leader did not beat around the bush and immediately stated her intention. Beside her, young Shiyun's expression changed slightly. Honorable teacher, Shiyun, don't interfere in this matter. Just as young Shiyun was about to say something, she was interrupted by the Hope Sound sect leader. Chu Kuangren was not surprised when he heard the Hope Sound sect leader's words. It was as if he had expected it. What a pity. I was hoping to find a chance to interact more with Brother Lin. Perhaps we'll have a chance to become in-laws in the future. There's no chance for that. The Hope Sound sect leader coldly glanced at Murong Xian beside her. He's not worthy to be the son-in-law of the Hope Sound sect. Honorable teacher. What have Brother Murong and the others done wrong? Why do you have to treat them this way? Yang Shiyun could not help but ask loudly. Offending the swordsmen is their biggest mistake. The Hope Sound sect leader shouted coldly. The swordsmen? Do they think they can do whatever they want? Silly child, the swordsman's heritage can't be compared to 10 Hope Sound sects. If they want to kill someone, no one can protect them. Yang Shiyun heard that and looked at Murong Xian with a helpless and worried expression. On one side was where her heart belonged, and on the other side was her honorable teacher and the sect that raised her. She was caught in the middle and was in a dilemma. Shiyun, the swordsmen are powerful. The Hope Sound sect leader is only doing this to protect you and the Hope Sound sect. I can understand that. Murong Xian looked at Yang Shiyun and comforted her. It's good that you think this way. I won't make things difficult for you. Seeing that you've saved Shiyun before, I'll give you 50 kilograms of spiritual source. Take it. The Hope Sound sect leader took out a yin and yang ring. Her meaning was very clear. Take this spiritual source and break up with my disciple. Go far away and never come back. I saved Shiyun. That's my business. I'm not asking you to repay me. Please take this spiritual source back, sect leader. Humph, pretending to be virtuous. The Hope Sound sect leader snorted. To her, Murong Xian was a skypride from the outside world. How much spiritual source could he have after entering the Emperor's path? 50 kilograms of spiritual source was considered a considerable asset in the Emperor's path. In the outside world, that was equivalent to 10 billion top-tier soul stones. As for the spiritual source, the Black Heaven sect has plenty of it. You don't have to worry about it, Brother Lin. Chu Kuangren stepped forward and said. He did not even look at the yin and yang ring before he left with Shang Qingxue. Murong Xian and Yang Shiyun looked at each other. Both of them were reluctant to leave. Shiyun, trust me. I'll overcome all the difficulties and come back for you. Murong Xian took a deep breath and said solemnly. After that, he turned around and caught up to Chu Kuangren and Shang Qingxue. Murong Xian did not say a word along the way. He seemed to be immersed in the sadness of parting with Yang Shiyun. What's wrong? You can't even handle such a small setback? Chu Kuangren raised his eyebrows. At that moment, Murong Xian lifted his head and looked at the end of the Emperor's path. He said firmly, Sect leader, I want to become an emperor. Chapter 526. Sect leader, I want to become an emperor. Murong Xian suddenly said with determination. Chu Kuangren, who heard him, had a strange look in his eyes. He then smiled and nodded. Good. I'm glad that you have such ambition. It was great that Murong Xian did not fall into depression. In fact, Murong Xian's Daoist core was strong enough that he would not fall into depression over this matter. I want to become an emperor. Only by becoming an emperor can I break through all obstacles. What swordsman? What Hope Sound sect? They can all go to hell. Murong Xian looked at the end of the emperor's path with an unprecedented fighting spirit. The power of love is indeed great. Shang Qingxue, who was beside him, marveled. After the three left Hope Sound sect, they went to an inn in Seven Chord City and stayed there for the time being. Although the emperor weapon, Spring Thunder, had already recognized its master. Chu Kuangren still needed to refine it before he could fully unleash its power. Since Spring Thunder had recognized its master, the process was not too long. Coupled with his current cultivation level, it took less than 2 days for Chu Kuangren to completely refine the Spring Thunder. During this process, a piece of news suddenly came. Jian Chongfeng of the swordsmen had suddenly challenged Chu Kuangren to a duel at Night City, which was not far from Seven Cord City. Regarding this sudden news, everyone in Seven String City was incomparably shocked. Although Jian Chongfeng was quite powerful and was one of the top sky prides in the Emperor's path, Chu Kuangren's strength had far surpassed his when he battled the Guqin demon, Painted Ghost 2 days ago. Where did Jian Chongfeng get the confidence to challenge Chu Kuangren? Shang Qingxue and Murong Xian were puzzled too. Is this guy out of his mind? I don't think it's that simple. There must be something we don't know about. Inside the inn, Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue were conversing. At that time, Chu Kuangren had also come out of his closed-door meditation. Then, Murong Xian told him about Jian Chongfeng. After listening, Chu Kuangren could not help but reveal a playful look. Challenge me? Where does this guy get his courage from? Sect leader, there must be a trick behind this. Heh, that's for sure. But since we have nothing better to do anyway, we might as well see what this guy is up to. Chu Kuangren said with interest. Then, he asked Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue to stay in the inn for the time being. For safety's sake, he left a strand of sword qi on each of them. This sword qi could be used to defend against enemies, and at the same time, it could also be used by Chu Kuangren to locate their whereabouts. This way, he would not lose contact with them like before. After making the necessary preparations, Chu Kuangren headed to Night Light City to find out what was going on. Compared to Seven Flux City, Yi City was just a small city. However, a few days ago, the city suddenly lost all contact with the outside world. The entire city seemed to be enveloped by an invisible force. Looking at Yi City from the outside, there was not a single person in the city. It was empty, like a ghost city. When Chu Kuangren arrived in the sky above Night City, he noticed that something was amiss. This is the mark of a formation. In order to set up the astonishing Cloud of Seas formation in the past, Chu Kuangren had studied formations on his own for a period of time. His attainments couldn't be said to be very deep, but he could still detect the extremely obvious traces of an array formation around Yi City. Someone has set up a huge formation in Night Light City. Is it Jian Chongfeng? No, I've used the Eye of Revelation to look at him, but I didn't find any information about him knowing about formations. It must be someone else who set up this formation. There was indeed something fishy going on in Night Light City. In a flash, Chu Kuangren stepped into Night Light City. Once he stepped into Night Light City, it was as if he had entered another world. It was a purgatory. Around Chu Kuangren, the people and cultivators of Night Light City were all lying on the ground, lifeless. The air was filled with the thick stench of blood. Chu Kuangren frowned and spread his spiritual thoughts outwards. The elderly, the children, the women, the cultivators, not even a dog or a bird survived. Not a single one of them was spared. It was not that there were no people in Night Light City. Instead, they were all dead people. The scene in front of them was too shocking. Although Night Light City was not large in size, it still had a population of tens of millions. Yet now, not a single one of them was left alive. Before this, there had been no news at all. Who did this? Is it just to deal with me? A cold murderous intent shot out from Chu Kuangren's eyes. In a flash, he arrived at the center of Night Light City. There was a tall building there, and on top of it stood a white-robed young man. This person had a long sword on his waist and a guqin on his back. He looked extraordinarily handsome. This person was the one who challenged Chu Kuangren to a duel, Jian Chongfeng. I'm here. Tell your companions to come out too. Let's end this quickly, shall we? Chu Kuangren said. Oh, aren't you curious as to why everyone in this city died? They're already dead. What can we do even if we don't know? TSK, what a cold-hearted guy. You should know that these people died because of you. Jian Chongfeng laughed as he stared at Chu Kuangren, wanting to see his expression. However, to his disappointment, Chu Kuangren's expression did not change at all. If you're trying to mess with my Daoist core, then you're sorely mistaken. Chu Kuangren said calmly. His Daoist core was as firm as a rock. Ever since he embarked on the path of cultivation, no one could shake it. There was no need to even mention Jian Chongfeng's words. I don't think even a cultivator who cultivates the heartless Dao has a heart as cold as yours. Aren't you afraid that these people will turn into evil spirits and seek revenge on you? You talk too much. Chu Kuangren's eyes turned cold. Before the descendant self-sword appeared on his waist, a cold sword chi shot out from his eyes. Jian Chongfeng's expression changed. He immediately pulled out his long sword and unleashed a sword chi of his own. However, compared to Chu Kuangren's sword chi, Jian Chongfeng's sword chi was far too weak. The moment the sword chi collided, Jian Chongfeng's sword chi was instantly shattered. The cold sword chi then landed on Jian Chongfeng's sage body like a hot knife through butter. Without any suspense, Jian Chongfeng's body was instantly sliced in half. However, the strange thing was that no blood spurted out of his body. With a burst of smoke, Jian Chongfeng's body turned into a wooden puppet and fell to the ground. The wooden puppet had been sliced in half by the sword chi, and mysterious runes were carved on it. A strange runic power circulated before it disappeared. Oh, a wooden puppet with runes carved on it. It even has a runic power that I've never seen before. Interesting. Chu Kuangren smirked as he looked into the distance. The real Jian Chongfeng was standing dozens of kilometers away, staring at Chu Kuangren with fear in his eyes. His forehead was dripping with cold sweat. How terrifying. If I didn't activate the wooden puppet in time, the real me would have been sliced in half by the sword chi. He didn't even draw his sword. Just a single strand of sword chi possesses such power. Not only does this person have unfathomable attainments in the way of the zither, even his attainments in the way of the sword are countless times greater than mine. He can even stand shoulder to shoulder with the son of Dao. Jian Chongfeng said with lingering fear. Chapter 527. You even have to use such a perverted technique to block my sword chi. Where do you get the courage to challenge me? Chu Kuangren looked at Jian Chongfeng, who was not far away, and said. However, a terrifying surge of Daoist rhyme suddenly erupted behind Jian Chongfeng, and a black shadow flew out from his back and headed towards Chu Kuangren. So the real challenger is here. Chu Kuangren stared at the black shadow with a strange look in his eyes. He then raised his sword and slashed. A domineering purple sword ray poured out. With a loud slash, the sword chi sliced the black shadow in half. A black robe that was torn in half fell from the sky. From that black robe, a skinny black shadow had already crawled out and arrived in front of Chu Kuangren. He then raised his sword and stabbed out. That sword attack came from a tricky angle. It was like a venomous snake that had been charging for a long time, and it carried an extremely ruthless and brutal aura. At that moment, Chu Kuangren felt like he was being targeted by an ancient ferocious beast. Not bad. Chu Kuangren smirked, and the descendant self-sword in his hand collided with that sword at an even faster and more tricky speed. Sparks burst out from the two swords, and a piercing sword chi poured out in all directions. A terrifying surge of energy erupted from the descendant self-sword, sending that skinny figure flying hundreds of feet away. After that person stabilized himself, Chu Kuangren looked over and saw that it was a skinny, gloomy old man with sunken eyes. Your movement technique is not bad. You managed to get close to me, and your sword technique is not bad either. You were able to block one of my attacks. Chu Kuangren looked at that old man and said. That was already a very high evaluation from him. That alone was enough to show that the old man's strength was much stronger than most boundary emperors. Even the mountain sword sentinel that Chu Kuangren encountered before was slightly weaker. TSK, I can't believe there's a sky pride like you in the outside world. What a surprise. However, since you've offended my swordsman tribe, you must die. The old man clicked his tongue. Even though they were enemies, that did not stop him from praising Chu Kuangren. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren said calmly, "All right, you can show me your trump card now." He did not think that his opponent would massacre the entire Dawn City just to choose a duel venue. There was also this formation. These dead people must have some sort of use. At the thought of this, he activated his Eye of Revelation and scanned the old man. Grudge Sword Guard, one of the shadow sword guards of the Sword Clan. He cultivates the sword of grudge, resentment. So that was how it was. A look of realization flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. Chu Kuangren, you should feel honored to have so many people die with you. The resentful sword guard laughed strangely. An eerie and terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme suddenly erupted from his body. This Daoist rhyme turned into a dark red pillar of qi that shot into the sky, resonating with the array formation that was set up around Yi City. In an instant, a large amount of scarlet resentment rose from the corpses strewn all over Yi City and gathered in the sky. More and more resentment gathered in the sky like a torrent, forming a terrifying cloud of resentment that enveloped a radius of 100 miles. The domineering aura contained within such resentment was naturally extremely terrifying. At this moment, Chu Kuangren felt as if he was in purgatory as the wailing of the undead could be heard from all directions. Such a scene was even worse than the combined attack of the Zither Demon and the Painted Demon. The combined attack of the Zither Demon and the Painted Demon was merely a manifestation of Daoist rhyme spiritual power. However, the resentment that permeated the surroundings was real. It was formed from the blood of tens of millions of living beings. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Chu Kuangren, I've never used this great blood vengeance formation. I'm sure you can guess the reason why. It's because every time I use this formation, I have to sacrifice a large number of living beings. This time, to kill you, I've sacrificed an entire city, which is the lives of tens of millions of living beings. With so many people dying with you, Chu Kuangren, what do you think now? The resentful sword guard laughed out loud. He felt that he had already won. Even the resentful sword guard himself did not know how terrifying the power of the great blood vengeance formation that was formed from the sacrifice of tens of millions of living beings. However, he knew that not even 10 mountain sword guardsmen could compare to such power. He might even be able to fight against an Emperor Realm cultivator. Other than killing you, I have no other thoughts. Chu Kuangren's tone was indifferent, but his eyes revealed an extremely cold murderous intent. The resentful sword guard could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Kill. To prevent any more trouble, the resentful sword guard immediately activated the formation's power. The blood-red cloud of resentment in the sky surged towards Chu Kuangren. It was a terrifying torrent of resentment. Upon closer inspection, there were many vengeful spirits within the scarlet cloud of resentment. Some were elderly, some were children, and some were women. These were the people who had died in Dawn City. At this moment, these people had turned into ferocious vengeful spirits under the resentful sword guard's control. They charged towards Chu Kuangren to claim his life. I don't want to die. Why? Why did you offend the swordsman? Why did you drag us into this? Why aren't you the one who died? These vengeful spirits wailed and stared at Chu Kuangren with resentful eyes, trying to distract his mind. That was one of the most powerful aspects of the Great Blood Vengeance formation. Ordinary cultivators who entered it would have their minds corroded and be at the mercy of the vengeful spirits. Even a boundary emperor would be greatly affected, and their combat strength would be greatly reduced. To the resentful sword guard, no matter how powerful or demonic Chu Kuangren was, his lifespan was limited. No matter how strong his Daoist core was, it could never be compared to those powerful boundary emperors. That was the difference in experience, age, and experience. It was not something that talent could make up for. However, what shocked the grieving sword sentinel was the fact that Chu Kuangren remained calm despite the curses of the vengeful spirit. It was as if his Daoist core had been through the vicissitudes of life and was now impenetrable. How can this be? How can he have such a Daoist core? Not only is his talent powerful enough to kill a boundary emperor, but his Daoist core is also so indestructible? The resentful sword guard was shocked. Unparalleled talent, indestructible Daoist core, that was what a true demon was like. At that moment, Chu Kuangren made his move. He gently lifted his arm, and a majestic Buddhist light poured out from his body. It was like a great sun that illuminated the land. Buddhist light? Is this guy a Buddhist cultivator? Just as the resentful sword guard was in a state of shock, the Buddhist light on Chu Kuangren's body grew brighter and brighter. As the Buddhist light circulated, it gradually formed into an ancient Buddha. The ancient Buddha looked at the vengeful spirits in front of it with a pitiful expression and chanted. Then, it slowly unleashed a palm attack. The majestic Buddhist light shattered the torrent of vengeful qi that surged out from Chu Kuangren. Countless vengeful spirits were purified by that power, but the giant Buddha palm continued to move forward and grabbed the huge cloud of vengeful qi. The ancient Buddha palm landed on the cloud of vengeful qi, and the Buddhist light exploded from within the cloud. Rays of golden light shot out from within the red cloud of vengeful qi. Then, the cloud of vengeful qi exploded. The great blood vengeance formation that enveloped the entire night city shook violently and gradually collapsed. Chapter 528. The entire Dawn city shook violently from Chu Kuangren's palm attack. That kind of power terrified the resentful sword sentinel. Not to mention that it was a Buddhist light that was specifically used to restrain his resentment qi. Even the most virtuous monk of the Putua temple might not have such a powerful Buddhist light. What's up with this person? Not only is he proficient in Guqin Dao and Sword Dao, but he also has such a terrifying Buddhist Dao cultivation base. Where did he get the energy to learn so many techniques? The resentful sword sentinel was shocked. Jian Chongfeng, who was watching from afar, was even more dumbfounded. His face was filled with disbelief. He had seen the forbidden sky pride before. However, from his point of view, even the legendary forbidden sky pride in his tribe could not compare to Chu Kuangren. A person like that had surpassed the boundaries of the word sky pride. Boom boom boom. The great blood grudge formation that enveloped the entire Dawn city shook violently as if it would collapse at any moment. When the resentful sword sentinel saw that, he let out a low roar. How can you destroy the great formation that I've painstakingly set up so easily? An incredibly powerful suction force erupted from his body, and the surrounding resentment qi surged towards him like a river flowing into the ocean. The resentful sword sentinel was absorbing the resentment qi into his body. Chu Kuangren watched from the side without stopping him. Come, let me see what else you have up your sleeves. Roar. As the resentment qi continued to enter his body, the resentful sword sentinel's frail body began to expand like a balloon. Very quickly, his thin and weak body grew several times bigger. His originally shriveled skin gradually became plump, and his white hair also became jet black. Blue veins popped up on his sturdy body, making him look like a dormant horned dragon. His muscles looked as if they were made of molten iron, giving off a powerful visual impact. With just one look, one could tell how terrifying the power contained in his body was. Not only that, but strange blood-colored patterns appeared on the resentful sword sentinel's body as well, giving off a demonic vibe. Oh, so you've regained your youth. Chu Kuangren looked at the resentful sword sentinel and chuckled as he activated his Eye of Revelation. The resentment qi has entered my body, and I've used a special technique to fuse it with my spiritual power to transform my body. However, my lifespan will be shortened. In other words, this isn't rejuvenation, but the final radiance of a setting sun. Upon hearing Chu Kuangren's words, the grudge sword sentinel was shocked as well. I didn't expect you to be able to see through my condition. This is something that even an Emperor Realm cultivator might not be able to do. It seems like you have a lot of secrets hidden within you. But it doesn't matter. Once I kill you, all your secrets will be mine. The eyes of the resentful sword guard revealed a fanatical look. He could not wait to find out what kind of secrets Chu Kuangren had. Putting everything else aside, just the monarch armament that Zhang Xian had on him was already a huge fortuitous encounter. You want to kill me? You think you can kill me in this state? Kiki, as long as I can get rid of the resentment within a certain period of time, I will be safe. The resentful sword guard laughed coldly. Without hesitation, he attacked. His figure flashed, his speed almost exceeding the limit that an ordinary quasi-emperor's spiritual sense could capture. From Jian Chongfeng's perception, the resentful sword guard's body turned into an afterimage before disappearing. What a fast movement technique! Chu Kuangren murmured as he spread his spiritual thoughts around him. Chu Kuangren had the telekinesis talent, so his spiritual thoughts were extremely sensitive. Not only could he see, but his spiritual thoughts also had 5 senses. It was as if he had countless clones. No matter how fast the resentful sword guard was, it was impossible for him to escape Chu Kuangren's perception. Chu Kuangren swung his descendant self-sword to the left. Clang! The two swords collided with each other. The huge impact forced both Chu Kuangren and the resentful sword guard to retreat. You can actually track my movements? The resentful sword guard was a little surprised, but he quickly regained his composure and attacked again. Blood grudge slash. The overwhelming resentment chi in his long sword condensed into a dark red sword shadow that was thousands of meters long. As the sword descended, the 1,000-meter-long sword shadow slashed towards Chu Kuangren, accompanied by waves of soul-devouring wails. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. Faced with the terrifying sword chi, Chu Kuangren's foundation levels unleashed a boundless divine radiance. When his 3 Daoist physiques appeared, a majestic sword ray rushed towards the sword shadow like a purple torrent that tore through the heavens and earth. 2 surges of energy instantly erupted. The 2 surges of sword chi intertwined and turned into a sword chi pillar that shot into the sky. The great blood grudge formation could no longer withstand the impact of this energy. With a loud bang, the great blood grudge formation shattered. Along with the destruction of the formation, a terrifying energy fluctuation was released, which was felt by countless strong cultivators. Surges of spiritual thoughts surged over to Dawn City. When they saw the battle between Chu Kuangren and the resentful sword guard, they could not help but be shocked. With such strength, I'm afraid they're close to an Emperor Realm cultivator. So strong. Who are these 2 people? That white-robed young man is Chu Kuangren, the one who obtained the Emperor Weapon of 7-String City. His musical Dao is so profound that even the Guqin demon, the painted ghost, was no match for him. I didn't expect him to have several supreme Daoist physiques. This is just too unbelievable. This person's talent is definitely not inferior to any of the Forbidden Sky Prides. In fact, he might even surpass them. The surges of spiritual thoughts conversed. Meanwhile, the battle between Chu Kuangren and the resentful sword guard had gradually entered a white-hot stage. Chu Kuangren, aren't you an expert in musical Dao? Where's your Guqin? The resentful sword guard raised his sword, and the majestic resentment chi turned into a giant blood-red sword shadow that forced Chu Kuangren back. You want to listen to my Guqin? Do you have the resolve to die for such a beautiful piece of music? Chu Kuangren raised his arm, and a bolt of lightning shot out from his body. The lightning bolt was so powerful that it contained a terrifying aura that it directly smashed onto the resentful sword guard's body. The resentful sword guard was forced back by the lightning bolt. Following that, the lightning bolt wandered in the void and landed in front of Chu Kuangren, where it turned into a gorgeous azure-colored guqin. It was the Emperor weapon, Spring Thunder. 8 celestial demonic chords, great chime reverberation. Chu Kuangren plucked the strings of the guqin with his fingers, and a guqin Daoist rhyme wrapped in majestic sound waves blasted towards the resentful sword guard. The resentful sword guard raised his arm and unleashed a slash, and the majestic resentment chi collided with the sound waves. Chu Kuangren stood his ground, his snow-white robe unmoving. On the other hand, the resentful sword guard was forced back a few meters with a solemn expression. This person's musical Dao is indeed extraordinary. I need more resentment chi. The resentful sword guard murmured. Once again, a surge of suction force erupted around him, and the resentment chi that had yet to dissipate surged into his body like a tidal wave. As the resentment chi increased, the resentful sword guard's expression gradually became more ferocious. Roar! The resentful sword guard let out a low roar that did not sound like a human's, and his eyes were filled with an unparalleled ruthlessness. Chu Kuangren, die! The resentful sword guard let out a thunderous roar that shook the entire Dawn City. He charged towards Chu Kuangren, and his overwhelming resentment chi almost covered half the sky. Facing the resentful sword guard who was like a mad demon, Chu Kuangren flicked his fingers and played the 8 celestial demonic chords continuously. Chapter 529. While Chu Kuangren was battling the grudge sword sentinel in Dawn City. In Seven Chord City, Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue were in trouble too. There was no one in the tavern. A woman in a black robe stood before Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue. She was a peerless beauty with a gentle gaze that could mesmerize 99% of the men in the world. However, that did not include Murong Xian. He already had someone in his heart, and he could sense a threat from the woman before him. Who are you? Murong Xian frowned. The Phantom Blade Sentinel of the Swordsman tribe, the Phantom Blade Sentinel. The Phantom Blade Sentinel smiled and looked at the two. It's all thanks to the grudge sword sentinel luring Chu Kuangren away that I had the chance to deal with you too. Deal with us? Are you trying to use us to threaten our sect leader? Shang Qingxue looked at the Phantom Blade Sentinel and said. She knew that she and Murong Xian were not worthy of the swordsman's attention. Their ultimate target was Chu Kuangren. Oh my, this young lady is really smart. Too bad that you can't change anything even if you know. The Phantom Blade Sentinel turned into a black shadow and charged towards Shang Qingxue. Shang Qingxue raised her hand and a majestic chill gushed out. The terrifying cold air froze the void in an instant. The faces of the succubus sword guards who were charging forward changed slightly. They could not help but retreat a few dozen feet and looked at Shang Qingxue with fear. I didn't expect you to have such strength. This cold air. You have the frost Daoist physique? She was a little surprised. Even if she was in frost physique, she should not have such a horrifying chill. Even Murong Xian beside her was surprised. Qingxue, it seems like you've had an extraordinary encounter too. Me too? Shang Qingxue smiled playfully. We'll talk about that later. Let's deal with the Phantom Blade Sentinel first. I'm afraid this person won't be easy to deal with. Murong Xian smiled and looked at the Phantom Blade Sentinel. Even though both he and Shang Qingxue had improved a lot and had their own encounters after entering the Emperor's path, they still did not dare to be careless against the Phantom Blade Sentinel. Humph, two geniuses from the outside world. I don't believe that you two are that strong. The mystic sword guard snorted coldly. As one of the supreme geniuses of the sword clan, she was second only to Jian Daozi. She had her own pride, and apart from Jian Daozi and the other forbidden geniuses, she feared no one. Go! Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue attacked the mystic sword guards from both sides. The other party wanted to capture them to threaten Chu Kuangren. At this moment, they could not be bothered to talk about morality and justice. So be it if they wanted to bully Chu Kuangren with numbers. 3 people, 3 swords instantly collided together. Murong Xian's blazing tyranny, Shang Qingshue's icy frost, the mystic sword guard's darkness and treachery. The moment the 3 sword Daoists collided, the entire inn instantly exploded. The mystic sword guards were the strongest. However, when faced with Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue joining forces, they were unable to do anything to them. Damn it! I've underestimated their strength. Aside from Chu Kuangren, I didn't expect the 2 disciples beside him to have such strength as well. What kind of sect is the Black Heaven sect? The mystic sword guard thought to herself and went all out against the 2. However, no matter how hard she tried, she could not gain too much of an advantage against the 2. D***M*, looks like I have to use that thing. The mystic sword guard gritted her teeth. Now that Chu Kuangren had left, she only had one chance to succeed. Once Chu Kuangren returned, she would not have another chance. She then took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. In an instant, an eerie and dark sword chi erupted from the mystic sword guard's body. Obscurity sword domain. Countless black sword chi intertwined in the void. Like the night sky, it enveloped a 10-kilometer radius, forming a dark domain. Be careful, Qingxue. Her strength has suddenly increased by a lot. This level of strength is already at the boundary emperor level. Shang Qingxue and Murong Xian's expressions turned grim. You shall be defeated. The mystic sword guard raised her arm and unleashed a black sword chi. That sword chi contained a surge of darkness-based Daoist rhyme. It was as if the entire night sky was crushing down on them. Shang Qingxue and Murong Xian's expressions changed slightly. However, at that moment, a ray of purple sword chi suddenly shot out from Murong Xian's body. The sword chi was like a flood that shattered the mystic sword guard's sword chi and landed on the pitch-black night sky. The night sky that was formed by countless dark sword chi was forcefully torn open, and a large number of cracks gradually spread out from that opening. As the sun shone in, the obscurity sword domain was broken. The mystic sword guard was horrified at the sight. What kind of sword chi is this? It broke through her sword chi with one strike, and then broke her domain. Such strength was considered top-notch even among the boundary emperors. It's the sword chi left behind by the sect leader. Shang Qingxue exclaimed in surprise. Following that, a ray of sword chi also shot out from her body. That sword chi materialized in the void and turned into a white-robed figure. It was Chu Kuangren. An incredibly powerful sword Dao aura spread out from Chu Kuangren and locked onto the mystic sword guard. It was the mystic sword guard's first time facing Chu Kuangren's sword Dao aura. She instantly felt her scalp go numb, and a hint of fear appeared on her delicate face. Such power, how is it possible? Didn't Chu Kuangren go and deal with the grudge sword guard? No, this is one of his spiritual thought clones. Upon realizing this, the mystic sword guard did not look happy at all. On the contrary, she looked even more terrified. If a spiritual thought clone could have such a domineering aura, then how powerful would his real body be? Could the exalted Jian Daozi really stand up to such an existence? For the first time in her life, the mystic sword guard doubted Jian Daozi. This was because the strength that Chu Kuangren had displayed was too terrifying, and it had exceeded her understanding of sky prides. Oh, so this was your plan? You got someone to lure me away, then come and capture Murong and the others to threaten me? Chu Kuangren said in a cold tone. Although it was just a spiritual thought clone, the mystic sword guard felt like a peerless killing god. Run! Unable to suppress the fear in her heart, the mystic sword guard turned and fled. Run? Do you think you can? Chu Kuangren turned into a sword ray and appeared in front of the mystic sword guard in the blink of an eye. The mystic sword guard yelled and slashed out with her sword. Facing this attack, Chu Kuangren focused his sword finger and slowly pointed it towards the mystic sword guard. The speed of this sword finger was not fast, and it was slowly unleashed. However, it was like the might of the heavens, majestic and unparalleled. Before the mystic sword guard's sword could land on Chu Kuangren's body, it was already crushed by that horrifying domineering aura and immediately dispersed. Chu Kuangren's sword finger landed on the mystic sword guard's chest like a hot knife through butter. Bang! The sword chi directly pierced through the mystic sword guard's body, and a mist of blood gushed out from her back. With just one attack, the mystic sword guard had lost all ability to resist. Qingxue, Murong, take care of her. Don't let her die, and wait for my return. Chu Kuangren said calmly, as if he had other plans for the mystic sword guard. Then, his figure disappeared into the void. Thousands of kilometers away in Night City, Chu Kuangren stared at the grudge sword guard with a cold murderous intent. Alright, I won't play with you anymore. As he pressed all 10 of his fingers on the Guqin strings, the Daoist rhymes in the Guqin music became even more majestic. Chapter 530. Chu Kuangren plucked the strings of the Spring Thunder Guqin with all 10 of his fingers, adding a surge of heavenly might to the Guqin music. It was the heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme. As the Guqin music spread, wave after wave, its majestic aura shook everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius. Countless living beings who heard the Guqin music fell to the ground. It was an instinctive reverence for the heavenly might. Needless to say, the grudge sword sentinel, who was facing the Guqin music head-on, was even more so. Even though he had the resentment chi in his body, which greatly increased his combat strength, he still could not defend against such power. His sturdy body began to crack, and cracks began to appear. How can this be? How can this be? No, no! The grudge sword sentinel screamed in horror. One after another, resentful spirits formed from the condensed resentment chi continuously emerged from his cracked body. D*M*, go back. The grudge sword sentinel waved his hands as if he wanted to push the resentful spirits back. However, his efforts were futile. The resentment chi had entered his body for too long. Coupled with the influence of the 8 celestial demonic cords, he was already at the end of his tether. Countless resentful spirits emerged from his body, but they did not dissipate. Each of them stared at the grudge sword sentinel with hatred in their eyes. Give me back my life. I'll kill you, one by one. The resentful spirits charged at the grudge sword sentinel and began to devour his body. At that point, the grudge sword sentinel had lost the ability to control the resentful chi and was now being attacked by the resentful spirits. No, no, as the resentful chi continued to drain, the grudge sword sentinel's sturdy body gradually shriveled, and his consciousness began to return. However, when he saw the resentful eyes of the resentful spirits, he fell into a state of unprecedented fear. The pain from the backlash of thousands of resentful spirits was not something he could withstand. Along with a series of screams, the grudge sword sentinel was drowned by the resentful spirits. The grudge sword sentinel, who used to control resentful chi to dominate the world, finally died at the hands of the resentful chi that he was most proud of. It had to be said that this was indeed ironic. Chu Kuangren looked at the cruel scene before him with a calm expression as he kept his emperor weapon, Spring Thunder. You reap what you sow. Then, he looked into the distance. A figure could be seen flying into the distance. It was Jian Chongfeng, who was trying to flee when he saw that he could not win. Where can you go? Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold as he lifted his hand and unleashed an invisible wave of mind power. Jian Chongfeng felt as if he had been pinched by an invisible hand and his body was uncontrollably fixed in midair. What's going on? Jian Chongfeng was somewhat horrified. He didn't sense any spiritual power fluctuations at all, so he didn't know how he was being controlled. Then, he could only watch helplessly as Chu Kuangren walked towards him. What do you want? I'm a genius of the sword race. If you kill me, it will only worsen the grudge between you and the sword race. Let me go, I'm willing to plead on your behalf, Jian Changfeng shouted loudly in an attempt to find a way out for himself. However, Chu Quanren looked at him indifferently. Do you think I need you to plead for me? He raised his hand and pointed it at Jian Changfeng's forehead. No. Jian Changfeng was terrified. But when the sword finger landed on his forehead, the pain he imagined did not come. Only a cold sensation pierced his mind. What's going on? While Jian Changfeng was bewildered, he felt the cold sensation penetrating deeper into his mind. It was as if it wanted to pierce into the depths of his soul. Not good. Although Jian Changfeng did not know what Chu Quanren was trying to do, he instinctively resisted it. The spiritual power in his body surged as his spiritual thought tried to resist the cold sensation. It was indeed effective. Jian Changfeng sensed that the ice-cold intent had already stopped. Oh, you want to resist? You don't have the ability to. Chu Quanren snorted as he channeled his mind power. Jian Changfeng could only feel an extremely powerful pressure that was crushing his body. The intense pain hit his nerves, and he felt as if his body was about to be crushed. Under such circumstances, his spiritual power and thoughts were no longer under his control, and his state of mind gradually dissipated. Soul manipulation slave seal. Chu Quanren let out a low grunt. That cold intent directly pierced into Jian Changfeng's soul and engraved itself on it, forming the golden word, slave. After that, Chu Quanren withdrew his hand. Jian Changfeng seemed to have understood everything as well. He clutched his head and half-knelt in the void. He looked at Chu Quanren with an indescribable fear in his eyes. Slave seal. Chu Quanren had planted a slave seal in his soul. Jian Changfeng could not believe that Chu Quanren had a technique to enslave souls. Now, his life was in Chu Quanren's hands. Report to me if anything happens when you return to the swordsman tribe, Chu Quanren said. Jian Changfeng's expression changed as he tried to resist. However, a sharp pain came from his soul. The more he resisted, the more intense the pain became. In the end, his soul felt like it was being torn apart. Jian Changfeng was drenched in cold sweat, and his face was extremely pale. In the end, he succumbed to the pain that came from his soul and nodded. Yes. He got up and left. Looking at his departing figure, Chu Quanren murmured, the soul manipulation slave seal is not something you can resist. Soon. The slave seal would slowly change Jian Changfeng's mind, and he would become Chu Quanren's most loyal slave. This nail that was planted in the swordsman tribe would provide Chu Quanren with all the information he needed. Swordsman tribe, heh. I don't mind playing with you guys. A cold smile appeared on Chu Quanren's face as he glanced at the corpses and wraiths that filled the sky. If he left them alone, these wraiths would spread and cause a terrible impact on the surrounding cities. Even the corpses that were corroded by the wraiths would turn into zombies. Although he didn't kill these people, they died because of him. He did not feel guilty because this was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. However, he felt that he could do something. As he lifted his arm, an invisible mind power spread out. Lines of runes condensed in the void and landed on Sky City, turning it into a raging inferno. The raging inferno burned Sky City, igniting countless corpses and mixing them with the remnant wraiths. It burned like a red karmic fire. Chu Quanren's body was enveloped in a Buddhist light as an ancient Buddha appeared and enveloped the entire Sky City. As the ancient Buddha chanted, countless wraiths were bathed in the Buddhist light. Their ferocious expressions gradually returned to normal before they finally dissipated into the void. After a long while, countless corpses were burned into ashes by the runic fire and dissipated with the wind. The endless wraiths were also purified by the Buddhist light and dissipated. After that, Chu Quanren left Sky City and returned to Seven Flux City. Not long after, news of what happened in Sky City spread, shocking all the cultivators within a radius of 1 billion miles. Some said that Sky City had turned into a ghost city because an ancient Buddha had descended to enlighten the people. The vast Buddhist light could be seen from 1,000,000 miles away. This rumor even spread to the Putua Temple, the #1 Buddhist organization in the Emperor's Path, attracting the attention of some of the temple's eminent monks. Chapter 531. Inside Seven-String City. Chu Kuangren, who had just returned from Night City, returned to the inn and saw a pile of rubble. Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue were nowhere to be found. Just as Chu Kuangren was about to contact them, the owner of the inn immediately rushed up to him, demanding compensation. "I don't care. This inn of mine has been open for hundreds of years, and it's well received in Seven-String City. Now that you've destroyed it, don't even think of leaving without paying dozens of kilograms of spiritual source." The owner of the inn grabbed Chu Kuangren and refused to let him leave. Not far away, Yang Shiyun, who was worried about Murong Xian's safety, walked up to him. "I'll pay for what they've destroyed. Shiyun, don't force yourself. This has nothing to do with us." Next to her, Shi'in's sect master said calmly. She looked at Chu Kuangren with a hint of schadenfreude in her eyes. "Look at you guys acting all high and mighty. Let's see what you can do now. Honorable teacher, I owe Brother Murong a favor." Yang Shiyun frowned, feeling a little disappointed in Shi'in's sect master. "So what if he did? Our Shi'in sect has been serving him for a long time and even gave him a spiritual source. Too bad he didn't want it. Of course, if Brother Chu wishes to take it back now, it's not impossible." Shi'in's sect master looked at Chu Kuangren and said playfully. "There's no need for that. I can still afford this amount of spiritual source." Chu Kuangren casually threw out a yin and yang ring that contained about 50 kilograms of spiritual source. To someone as wealthy as Chu Kuangren, this amount was just a drop in the bucket. The owner of the inn took the yin and yang ring, looked at it, and was instantly overjoyed. "Then I'll let this matter rest. Goodbye, sect leader Chu." The innkeeper took the spiritual source and left happily. With this amount of spiritual source, he could easily build a few more inns like this one. Beside him, Shi'in's sect master, who saw Chu Kuangren casually taking out dozens of kilograms of spiritual source, did not look too good. However, Chu Kuangren ignored her and immediately contacted Murong Xian and learned that they were now in a forest in Seven-String City. He left the scene and went to where Murong Xian and his companion were. Besides them, there was also the Phantom Sword Sentinel. At this moment, the Mei Sword Guard was lying on the ground. Her chest had been pierced by sword qi, and the dense sword qi was wrapped around the wound, sealing her spirit energy. Her soft and charming face was pale, and her weak and helpless appearance could not help but make people feel pity for her. However, Chu Kuangren looked at him calmly and activated his Eye of Revelation. Phantom Sword Guard, one of the members of the Sword Race's Shadow Sword Guard. He possesses the Fallen Darkness body and specializes in the Tao of Darkness. The Fallen Dark physique was one of the 3,000 Daoist physiques, and it was a supreme Daoist physique that was on par with Lan Yu's Holy Radiant physique. Even in the Sword Race, a Daoist physique of this level would make him a top-notch genius. It's surprising that such a Skypride would become a member of the Shadow Blade Master, Chu Kuangren said in surprise. "Humph, for the sake of Lord Daoist, so what if I'm in boundless darkness?" The charming sword guard snorted coldly. "Oh, Lord Daozi, you mean the Sword Clan's Daozi, right? Since I've fallen into your hands, then kill me. Don't even think about getting any information about the Sword Clan or the Dao Child from me." The charming sword guard looked like she was determined to die. "It would be a waste to kill you. After all, this Fallen Dark physique is still a supreme Daoist physique. What do you want then? You'll find out soon enough." Chu Kuangren's lips curled into a cold smile. With a flick of his finger, a ray of light shot out from his fingertip and pierced into the defenseless charming sword guard's mind. It was the Soul Mastery Slave Seal. The charming sword guard sensed that something was wrong and frantically tried to resist the slave seal's invasion. However, her strength was far from Chu Kuangren's, and with her heavily injured body, all her resistance was futile. Not long after, the soul mastery slave seal was deeply engraved into her soul. B*****. How dare you try to enslave me? The charming sword guard glared at Chu Kuangren. We'll find out soon enough if I'm dreaming or not. Chu Kuangren said calmly. With a thought, he dispersed the sword chi on the charming sword guard, allowing her spiritual power to recover. Upon seeing that, the charming sword guard channeled her spiritual power and dragged her injured body to attack Chu Kuangren. Shang Qingxue and Murong Xian sneered when they saw that. At her peak, she could not even defeat a spiritual thought clone of Chu Kuangren. Now that she was heavily injured, how could she fight the real charming sword guard? However, Chu Kuangren had no intention of attacking her. Just as the charming sword guard's sword was getting closer and closer to Chu Kuangren, she suddenly felt an intense pain in her mind. It was a pain that originated from her soul. It was the punishment that the slave seal gave her for defying her superiors. The intense pain in her soul made the charming sword guard tremble. She could not help but kneel on the ground, and the sword in her hand dropped to the ground. Since I can't kill you, don't even think of using me against Master Daoist. The charming sword guard was not as weak as she looked. On the contrary, she was very strong-willed. Seeing that she could not kill Chu Kuangren, to prevent herself from harming the swordsman or Jian Daoist, she endured the pain and picked up the long sword on the ground to slash her neck. The blade of the sword cut through her smooth neck, and a large amount of blood gushed out. Chu Kuangren looked at the suicidal charming sword guard and was slightly surprised. Oh, you're quite loyal to the swordsman and Jian Daoist. He raised his hand and activated the spring breeze healing technique. The surrounding life force gathered and surged into the charming sword guard's body. With the help of this powerful recovery emperor technique, the wound on the charming sword guard's neck rapidly healed. Soon, the charming sword guard was as good as new. She touched her neck and found that there was not even a scar. If not for the blood that gushed out, she would have thought that everything that happened was just a dream. Chu Kuangren had saved her. However, she did not think that he did it out of kindness. She suddenly felt a surge of sorrow in her heart. She did not expect that she could not even die in front of Chu Kuangren. What are you planning to use me against the swordsman? The charming sword guard asked coldly. That's not urgent. Chu Kuangren activated his spiritual thought and a rune gathered around him, forming a collar that locked onto the charming sword guard's neck. In an instant, the charming sword guard felt that the spiritual power in her body was completely locked into her spiritual mound. Qingxue, I'll leave her in your care. Take her with you for now and don't let her escape, Chu Kuangren said. All right. Shang Qingxue nodded. Beside her, Murong Xian was puzzled. Sect leader, this woman is stubborn and would rather die than submit. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to subdue her. We'll find out soon enough. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The true power of the soul mastery slave seal had yet to be fully revealed. Murong Xian did not ask any more questions. The three of them then led the charming sword guard towards the end of the Emperor's road. However, they did not encounter any great opportunities of fortune along the way. After all, the Emperor's road was extremely vast. Although many opportunities of fortune had begun to appear, it still required a certain amount of luck to encounter them. Moreover, many of the opportunities of fortune were monopolized by the major forces, so it was impossible for ordinary cultivators to get a share of them. Chapter 532. Mystic Sword Guard, do you know of any new opportunities that have appeared recently? Chu Kuangren asked the magic sword guard who was not far away. Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue were stunned when they heard that, and they gave Chu Kuangren a strange look. Why are you asking this? What would the phantom sword guard say? The other party probably wanted to hack them into 1,000 pieces. Why would he tell them such important information? As expected, the mystic sword guard coldly snorted, "Do you think that I will tell you about the 1,000 Wonders Paradise?" Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. The charming sword guards were even more astonished. What did she just say? Why would she tell Chu Kuangren about the 1,000 strange grottos? What was going on? Oh, the paradise of endless wonders. What kind of opportunity of fortune is this? Chu Kuangren asked again. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible for me to tell you anything about the 1,000 Wonders Paradise. If you want to know, go to the profound Sky Dao province and you'll find out yourself. The charming sword guard shouted. Oh, the Endless Wonders Paradise is located in the mysterious Heavenly Dao Prefecture. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The expression of the magic sword guard gradually became one of fear. What was going on? Why would she uncontrollably reveal the information that Chu Kuangren wanted? What did you do to me? The Mei sword guard asked loudly, what is the use of the slave imprint? Let's go. Let's go to the profound sky prefecture. Chu Kuangren did not explain anything to her. He got up and led Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue towards the direction of the Black Heaven Dao state. On the way, they passed by a large river. The Mei sword guard looked at the river and then at the blood-stained dress on his body. He suddenly felt itchy all over. Chu Kuangren glanced at her and said, "Qingxue, take her to wash up and get a change of clothes." At the side, the enchantment sword guards were a little suspicious. How could this guy be so kind? You look so dirty. Those who don't know might think that we brought a beggar. How embarrassing. Chu Kuangren's words made the magic sword sentinel grit his teeth. This damned fellow, however, just as this thought came to her mind, she couldn't help but feel a stabbing pain in her soul. Damn it, damn it. She could not have any thoughts of disrespecting Chu Kuangren. Under the threat of the slave seal, the magic sword sentinel quickly suppressed any thoughts of disrespecting Chu Kuangren. After a while, Shang Qingxue came back with the Mei Jian guards who had finished washing up. At this time, she had already changed into a black dress. Her black hair reached her waist, and her skin was snow-white and smooth. Her watery eyes were filled with tenderness. One had to admit that the enchantress sword guard was indeed a stunner. She was a stunner that was lethal to men. Chu Kuangren glanced at him and said, "This appearance is somewhat acceptable. It's not too embarrassing." The corner of the mystic sword guard's mouth twitched as he forcefully suppressed the urge to kill Chu Kuangren. The few of them continued to rush in the direction of the profound Sky Dao state. In the past few days, Shang Qingxue and Murong Xian were shocked to realize that the mystic sword guard's attitude towards Chu Kuangren was gradually changing. From the initial hatred, to fear, and now, every move they made was filled with a hint of respect for Chu Kuangren. In just a few days, the mystic sword guard's attitude towards Chu Kuangren had changed completely. This shocked Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue. The sect leader is too powerful. It's only been a few days, and the mystic sword guards have already been subdued by him. I didn't even see him do anything. That's right. Besides, the sect leader often taunts her. Could it be that the mystic sword guards like this? I don't think so. Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue were puzzled. They went to ask Chu Kuangren, but he only smiled without saying a word. Just before they were about to reach the profound Sky Dao state, the mystic sword guard came before Chu Kuangren with a complicated expression. In the past few days, she had also noticed the changes in herself. However, she had no way of controlling this change. She was initially terrified of this feeling. However, gradually, she became numb to it. Now, she had succumbed to this change. When will you let me go? The mystic sword guard looked at Chu Kuangren and asked. It's almost time. Chu Kuangren looked up at the moon and said, "You can leave tonight." The mystic sword guard was stunned. She did not expect it to be that easy. However, when she heard that she could leave, the mystic sword guard felt a sense of reluctance. "Aren't you afraid that I'll tell the swordsman about you? Will you?" Chu Kuangren retorted. The mystic sword guard was silent for a while before she shook her head. "I won't." "Then that settles it." Chu Kuangren took out a lantern that looked like it was carved from glass. It was the green glass magic lamp that he obtained from the Wu family. "Take this lantern and report back." "This is the green glass magic lamp?" Since the mystic sword guard was here to assassinate Chu Kuangren, she naturally knew about the green glass magic lamp. At the same time, she also knew that this lamp was very important to Jian Daozi. It seemed to be related to an opportunity of fortune. If this lamp falls into Jian Daozi's hands, I'm afraid his strength will greatly increase. "Master, why did you do this?" The mystic sword guard was puzzled. However, as soon as she said that, she came to her senses. Did she just call Chu Kuangren master? Not only that. She was still worried about Chu Kuangren's safety, so much so that she placed the importance of this matter above Jian Daozi. This was something that she would never do in the past. In the past, she placed Jian Daozi's matter above everyone else's. However, Chu Kuangren's position in her heart had now surpassed Jian Daozi's. Chu Kuangren glanced at her, puzzled. He secretly lamented that the slave seal was too overbearing. "It's just a lamp. What's the harm in giving it to him? Besides, this lamp is related to an opportunity of fortune, so I'll let Jian Daozi search for it on my behalf." Chu Kuangren said. The green glass magic lamp was incomplete, so it would not be of much use to him. Since Jian Daozi had sent people to snatch the magic lamp from him, he probably had the missing part of the lamp's wick. Not only that, but the complete magic lamp was related to a sword emperor. Chu Kuangren would not let such an opportunity of fortune slip by. Since Jian Daozi did not come looking for him now, he would deliver the lamp to him. "Jian Daozi, I hope you won't disappoint me and find that opportunity of fortune as soon as possible." Chu Kuangren murmured. The phantom sword sentinel took the green glass magic lamp and handed him a jade scroll. "This contains all the information I know about the sword tribe. Besides that, there's also some information about the Thousand Strange Paradise. I hope it will be of help to you, master." "Alright, I understand." Chu Kuangren kept the jade scroll. The phantom sword sentinel glanced at Chu Kuangren before his figure flashed, turning into a black shadow that instantly merged into the darkness and disappeared. After the phantom sword sentinel left, Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue walked out. They looked at Chu Kuangren with admiration. F***ck me, sect leader, you're so awesome. The phantom sword sentinel actually called you master just now. That's such a huge change. Do you think your sect leader's methods are fake? Chu Kuangren smiled casually. The next day, the three of them arrived at the Black Heaven Dao State. At the same time, they inquired about the Thousand Strange Paradise and matched the information provided by the Phantom Sword Sentinel. Chapter 533. The Thousand Strange Grotto was not exactly a mysterious place. It was just a secret realm. However, the opportunities of fortune in this secret realm were too great. The Thousand Strange Grotto would only appear once every 30,000 years on the Emperor's path, and every time it appeared, it would be accompanied by a large number of opportunities of fortune. If there was a ranking for opportunities of fortune, then the Thousand Strange Grotto would definitely be in the top 10 of the Emperor's path. However, it had only been 20,000 years since the last time the Thousand Strange Grotto appeared. Logically speaking, it was not the time for the Thousand Strange Grotto to open. However, due to the changes in the Emperor's Mountain and the reappearance of the Emperor's throne, the Thousand Strange Grotto had opened earlier. Only some of the top forces knew about this, and the sky prides from those forces were now preparing to enter the Thousand Strange Grotto to explore. In the swordsman tribe, the Phantom Blade Sentinel had returned and was meeting with the swordsman tribe leader in one of the palaces. "Tribe leader, I failed to kill Chu Quanren. Please punish me." The Phantom Blade Sentinel knelt in front of the swordsman tribe leader and said guiltily. Although the swordsman tribe leader was disappointed that he failed to kill Chu Quanren, he did not intend to punish the Phantom Blade Sentinel. After all, the Phantom Blade Sentinel was a top-tier skypride that was second only to Jian Daozi in the swordsman tribe. With a supreme Daoist physique, he was the future pillar of the swordsman tribe. "Rise, Mountain Sword Sentinel." Even the Grudge Sword Sentinel failed to kill him. "It's good enough that you came back alive. I've underestimated Chu Quanren. Thank you, tribe leader." The Phantom Blade Sentinel stood up and took out the green glass godly lamp. "Tribe leader, although I failed to kill Chu Quanren this time, I managed to bring back the green glass godly lamp." The swordsman tribe leader's eyes lit up when he heard that. His first reaction was not joy, but confusion. Even the Mountain Sword Sentinel and the Grudge Sword Sentinel could not do it. "How did you do it?" The swordsman tribe leader stared at the Phantom Blade Sentinel. Meanwhile, the Mystic Blade Sentinel had already prepared an excuse. "Speaking of which, it's all thanks to the Grudge Sword Sentinel. He was the one who lured Chu Quanren away, giving me the opportunity to attack his two disciples. I used those two disciples as a threat to exchange for this green glaze magic lamp." "Oh, I see." The clan leader of the sword race looked at the Phantom Sword Guard. However, the other party's expression did not reveal any flaws at all. Then, he asked a few more questions. However, the Charm Sword Guards were able to answer their questions fluently, successfully dispelling the doubts of the sword race patriarch. Being able to retrieve the green glass magic lamp is already a great achievement. "Mystic Sword Guard, what reward do you want? Tell me. I am a sword guard of the sword race. It is my duty to work for the sword race. I dare not ask for rewards." "Ha, you are too humble. Tell me, what do you want? As long as the sword clan has it, I will satisfy you." Actually, the Charm Sword Guard has admired Daozi for a long time. I hope that I can follow by Daozi's side and do his bidding. The Mystic Sword Guard hesitated for a moment, and when he mentioned Jian Daozi, a look of longing appeared in his eyes. Upon hearing this, the sword race patriarch laughed out. "Actually, I have long known that you joined the Shadow Sword Guards for the sake of Daozi. Since you have such intentions, how can I not fulfill your wish? Daozi's Shadow Guards are still lacking one person. You shall fill that gap then. Other than that, I shall reward you with a Black Cloud Iron Beast's beast energy. This item complements your fallen darkness body and will be of great help to you. Many thanks, clan leader." At this moment, a figure walked into the main hall. This person wore a luxurious golden robe. His brows were sharp and his eyes were bright. There was a biting cold aura circulating around him. "Oh, we just talked about Daozi and here he is." The sword race patriarch looked at the young man. This man was none other than Daozi of the sword race. However, the Charm Sword Guard beside him realized that something was wrong. "Something's wrong. This aura is somewhat different from Lord Daozi. As expected of me, Your senses are right. This body before you is indeed not my true self. It's a clone. However, even though it's a clone, I obtained this clone by chance. It possesses 80% of my strength." Jian Daozi looked at the Charm Sword Guard and smiled. It seemed like he had known the Charm Sword Guard for a long time. "Lord Daozi, your methods are brilliant. I'm impressed." The Charm Sword Guard revealed a suitable look of admiration. My true self is still in closed-door meditation when the Thousand Strange Grottos opens. I plan to let this clone go. Although it only has 80% of my strength, it's more than enough to defeat the younger generation of the Emperor's path. Jian Daozi said proudly. As expected of my sword race's Daozi. With such boldness, you'll definitely become an emperor in the future and rule over all living beings. The sword race's Daozi smiled. Then, his eyes lit up when he saw the sacred green glass lamp in the sword race patriarch's hand. This is the sacred green glass lamp. That's right. This is the sacred green glass lamp that the charm sword guard brought back. Have you killed Chu Quanren? The sword race's Daozi said as he looked at the charm sword guard with admiration. In the past, whenever he showed such an expression, the charm sword guard would be overjoyed. However, now, the charm sword guard looked dejected. It's my fault for not being able to kill Chu Quanren. She then repeated what she had told the sword race's leader. Looks like this Chu Quanren is quite interesting. If I can meet him in the Thousand Wonders Paradise, I'll definitely meet him. Beside her, the charm sword guard could not help but roll her eyes. Come on, even if your real body is here, I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand more than a few attacks from Master. Now that you're only a clone with 80% of your strength, you'll be lucky if Master doesn't kill you with a single slap. Where does your confidence come from? I'm sure Mei has suffered a lot to retrieve the sacred green glass lamp for me. Don't worry, if I meet Chu Quanren, I'll definitely avenge you. Thank you, Master Daozi. There's no need for such courtesy between us. The charm sword guard smiled. He and the charm sword guard had known each other for a long time, and he knew that the charm sword guard had a deep relationship with him. She even joined the Shadow Blade Guards because of him. He was very proud of that. After all, how many people in this world would be able to receive such a dedication from the Mystic Sword Guard, a daughter of the heavens? However, although the charm sword guard had a deep relationship with him, he had only treated her as a tool to help him manage the swordsman tribe. He, Jian Daozi, already had someone in his heart. Now that the Thousand Wonders Paradise has appeared, I believe Ningyu will be there too. It's been 60 years since I last saw her. Jian Daozi had a nostalgic look on his face. The charm sword guard's expression changed when she heard the name Ningyu. She then said, Tribe leader, Master Daozi, I'll take my leave first. Alright, you may leave. The swordsman tribe leader nodded. When the charm sword guard was far away, the swordsman tribe leader said, Jian Daozi, you know that the charm sword guard likes you, yet you purposely brought up other girls in front of her. Aren't you making her unhappy? Aren't you afraid that she'll blame you? I'm only doing this to remind her that I already have someone I like. Besides, don't you think that the more unobtainable something is, the more attractive it is? To Mei, the more I can't get her, the more she'll want it. From then on, she'll never be able to escape from my control. Hearing this, a look of realization appeared on the face of the Sword Clan leader as he laughed, Jian Daozi's methods have truly opened my eyes. Chapter 534. Black Heaven Dao State, where the Thousand Strange Grotto was located. According to the information provided by the Mystic Sword Guards, Chu Quanren, Shang Qingxue, and Murong Xian had arrived at the mountain range where the Thousand Strange Grotto was located. Although the Thousand Strange Grotto had yet to fully reveal itself to the world, many people had already arrived. Countless sky prides were wandering around the entire mountain range. Even the weakest of these sky prides were comparable to honorable supremes or even sages. Some of the top sky prides were even on par with the older generation. As for the forbidden sky prides, Chu Quanren had yet to see any of them. There are so many of them, and none of them are to be underestimated. Murong Xian looked at the surrounding sky prides and said solemnly. In the outside world, Murong Xian was one of the top sky prides. Even the Empyrean walkers of the past were no match for him. However, on the Emperor's Road, where sky prides were everywhere, he was not considered one of the best despite being outstanding. Only by mastering the incinerating divine art to the highest level can I fight against the top forbidden sky prides. Murong Xian murmured. Beside him, Chu Kuangren seemed to have heard his words. He smiled and did not ask any questions. He knew that Murong Xian had his own opportunity of fortune. Sect leader, when will the Thousand Strange Grotto open? Shang Qingxue asked curiously. It should be another 2 days. When the Thousand Strange Grotto opens, there will be a phenomenon. Chu Kuangren said. He was not in a hurry. Then, he activated his treasure locating skill. The fluctuations of various treasures within a 10,000-kilometer radius were clearly reflected in his mind. There are some decent treasures in this mountain range that will be helpful to both of you. Chu Kuangren took out a jade scroll and recorded the information of some treasures into it before handing it to the two. Here, you guys can go look for them. Alright. Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue already knew that Chu Kuangren had some kind of technique that allowed him to sense treasures, so they were not surprised. Before the Thousand Strange Grotto opened, the two of them were one step ahead of the others in searching for treasures. With Chu Kuangren's treasure locating skill, the two of them managed to find many treasures in 2 days. On this day, Murong Xian found a supreme herb. The supreme herb was growing at the mouth of a volcano and was emanating an incredibly strong fire-based Daoist rhyme. With this herb, my divine art of burning heaven can almost step into the 5th level. I'm one step closer to the 7th level. Murong Xian's eyes lit up as he quickly approached the crater of the volcano. As for the intense volcanic aura, it was like a burst of warm air that had no effect on him. However, just as he was about to pluck the herb, a spear energy suddenly swept towards him with an overbearing aura. Upon seeing this, Murong Xian activated his Crimson Sun Daoist physique and the crimson longsword in his hand abruptly slashed out. It was a weapon he had obtained after entering the Emperor's Road. It was called Burning Sun. The Burning Sun collided with the spear energy with a loud bang. A terrifying force exploded and Murong Xian was forcefully pushed back several hundred feet. He looked into the distance and saw a young man in a golden robe standing in the air with a long spear in his hand. He exuded a domineering aura. That herb is mine. You, scram. The young man said coldly to Murong Xian. When Murong Xian heard this, an arrogant look appeared on his face. I was wondering who it was. So it's you, Xiao Jingchen. Xiao Jingchen was originally ranked 3rd on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard. He was also the owner of the Heavenly Golden Imperial physique. It was a very powerful physique. Among the 3,000 physiques, it was ranked even higher than the exquisite 9 Orifices Sword Heart. However, Murong Xian was not afraid of him at all. Oh, you know about the Soaring Dragon leaderboard? Looks like you're from the Firmament Star. With such strength, which Soaring Dragon leaderboard sky pride are you? Xiao Jingchen looked at Murong Xian and said in surprise. Murong Xian from the Black Heaven sect. When he heard the name Black Heaven sect, Xiao Jingchen seemed to have thought of something. A hint of fear appeared in his eyes as he looked around. Is Chu Kuangren from the Black Heaven sect here too? It doesn't matter if the sect leader is here or not. If you want this herb too, you'll have to defeat me first. Murong Xian held the burning sun in his hand and a hint of battle intent appeared in his eyes. He wanted to see how big the gap was between him and a top-notch sky pride like Xiao Jingchen. Was it possible for him to defeat him? Humph, with just you? Xiao Jingchen looked around and was relieved when he did not see Chu Kuangren. In the entire Firmament Star, he was not afraid of anyone except Chu Kuangren. Me? Murong Xian took a step forward and a scorching wave of air erupted from his body. It was as if the entire sky was going to be incinerated. Humph, I'll show you the power of the Heavenly Golden Imperial physique. Xiao Jingchen snorted. He lifted his arm and unleashed a punch. Majestic spiritual power converged to form a giant yellow fist mark. When the fist mark was unleashed, it was as if the sky was going to collapse. When Murong Xian saw that, he swung the burning sun sword in his hand and a crimson-red sword chi surged out along with a majestic wave of fire. When the two energies collided, a deafening explosion erupted. The entire volcano stirred up a large amount of dust. Such a commotion naturally attracted the attention of many people. What a powerful energy fluctuation. Who's fighting? This kind of energy, it's at least a top-notch sage ruler. It might even be close to a boundary emperor. Let's go and take a look. If it's a battle of sky prides, we have to pay attention to such a sky pride. Everyone rushed towards the crater of the volcano. Meanwhile, in the distance, Chu Kuangren, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. Oh, Murong Xian is fighting someone. This kind of energy, it's him. At the crater of the volcano. The battle between Murong Xian and Xiao Jingchen had reached its climax. Both of them were top-notch sky prides with extraordinary combat strength, especially Xiao Jingchen. The heavenly golden imperial physique was ranked second among the 3,000 physiques. Its power was so strong that few physiques in the past and present could match it. Coupled with his sage ruler cultivation level, the strength that he unleashed was close to a boundary emperor. However, what shocked Xiao Jingchen was that he could not defeat Murong Xian quickly. His opponent's physique was only the Crimson Sun Daoist physique. Although it was a top-notch Daoist physique, it was ranked at the bottom among the top-notch Daoist physiques. There was no way it could be compared to his heavenly golden imperial physique. However, the combat strength that Murong Xian unleashed was not any weaker than his. This discovery shocked him greatly. What's going on with this guy? Where did he get such terrifying strength from? Wait, it's not a Daoist physique, it's a technique. This guy's cultivation technique is too advanced, and it complements his Daoist physique. That's why he has such combat strength. Xiao Jingchen had good eyesight, so he soon noticed something fishy. He was shocked because his own cultivation technique was also extraordinary. It was an emperor's scripture. However, Murong Xian could still fight on par with him even though his Daoist physique was at a disadvantage. This meant that Murong Xian's cultivation technique was of a higher grade than his. Murong Xian must have cultivated an emperor's scripture as well, and it must be a top-notch one even among the emperor's scriptures. As more and more people came to watch the battle, Xiao Jingchen was starting to get anxious because he still could not defeat Murong Xian. The heavenly golden imperial physique was fighting against a crimson sun Daoist physique that was far inferior to him. Was that not implying that he was useless? Looks like this is the only way. Chapter 535. Looks like this is the only way. Xiao Jingchen's eyes gleamed coldly as he sheathed his spear. Just when Murong Xian thought his opponent was going to stop fighting, a terrifying emperor's aura erupted from Xiao Jingchen's body. The aura was so strong that it pushed Murong Xian a few hundred meters back. This aura is... Murong Xian looked at Xiao Jingchen with a serious expression. A black spear gradually formed in his opponent's hand. The spear was emanating waves of Emperor's aura. It was an Emperor weapon. The spectators were all shocked. An Emperor weapon. That's an Emperor weapon. This person has an Emperor weapon. Not only does he have the heavenly golden imperial physique, but he also has an Emperor weapon. I know him. He's the son-in-law of the Bai clan of the Nine Heavens, Xiao Jingchen. Tisk Tsk, the Bai clan is an ancient family. But even so, a sky pride from the Bai clan is too rich to have an emperor weapon. Perhaps this is his own opportunity of fortune, the crowd discussed among themselves. Other than the local sky prides from the emperor's path, there were also many sky prides from the Nine Heavens and the Firmament Star. Many of them were on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard. For example, Zhan Hongying and Tuba. Zhan Hongying couldn't help but pout when she saw Xiao Jingchen take out his emperor weapon. This guy is too shameless. He already has the heavenly golden imperial physique, but now he's taking out an emperor weapon. Isn't this clearly bullying? TSK, it seems that the Daoist physique depends on who has it. This heavenly golden imperial physique is a waste in Xiao Jingqian's hands. He can't even defeat the Crimson Sun Daoist physique. I guess this is the most useless heavenly golden imperial physique in history, Tuba said disdainfully. However, Xiao Jingqian could not care less. With the emperor weapon in his hand, a large amount of heavenly golden aura rolled behind him and formed a huge heavenly venerable form. You shall be defeated. Xiao Jingqian shouted and stabbed the emperor weapon at Murongxian. The might of the emperor weapon and the might of a heavenly venerable immediately locked onto Murongxian. You want me to surrender just like that? Dream on. Murongxian growled as his body continued to emit scorching flames. There was even a dazzling red light circulating on the burning sun sword. With a slash of the sword, the scorching sword chi almost turned into a sea of fire that enveloped the sky and whizzed toward the spear force. However, how could the might of a sovereign armament be so easily blocked? The sea of flames was pierced through by the spear energy and was headed straight for Murongxian. At this critical moment, an incomparably terrifying, piercingly cold aura instantly filled the space between heaven and earth. This aura, it's him. Zhan Hongying, Tuba, and the rest of the firmament star sky prides narrowed their eyes as they looked into the distance. In the distance, a beam of sword light suddenly shot into the sky, and it was extremely magnificent. Like a rainbow, the sword chi traveled thousands of miles in the blink of an eye and landed on Xiao Jingqian's spear radiance. In the blink of an eye, the spear light was broken. However, the sword chi was unstoppable as it charged toward Xiao Jingqian. Chu Kuangren. Xiao Jingqian's eyes were filled with fear. Facing the oncoming sword chi, he suddenly roared and pushed his spiritual power to the extreme. The celestial master Dharma idol's hands grabbed at the sword energy. However, at the moment of contact, the celestial master Dharma idol's hands were chopped off. The celestial master Dharma idol's unique heavenly golden physique could not stop the sword chi at all. Break! Xiao Jingqian held the sovereign armament in his hand and thrust it forward. The sword and spear clashed, and an incredibly powerful impact erupted. Xiao Jingqian was blasted thousands of meters away before he crashed into a mountain in the distance, looking extremely pathetic. It was just one sword strike. He could not block it no matter how hard he tried, and he was instantly injured. He raised his hand and looked into the distance, only to see a black-haired white-robed figure slowly walking through the air towards him. Xiao Jingqian's peerlessly handsome appearance and disdainful demeanor were the nightmares that haunted him. Chu Kuangren. It's him. He's here at the Emperor's Road too. Xiao Jingqian was not surprised. However, he had been cultivating hard for a year and had improved a lot, yet he could not even block a single sword strike from his opponent. That was too much of a blow to him. Zhan Hongying, Tuba, and the others looked at Chu Kuangren with fear. As for the local sky prides who did not know who Chu Kuangren was, they were shocked when they saw him injuring Xiao Jingqian with a single sword strike. Are you kidding me? That's the heavenly golden imperial physique we're talking about. How can he be defeated with a single sword strike? Who the hell is this person? How can he have such terrifying combat strength? Even the forbidden sky prides are no match for him. All the sky prides at the scene were discussing. The heavenly golden imperial physique was very famous, and Xiao Jingqian had an emperor weapon with him. Even the forbidden sky prides would not be able to defeat him with a single move. However, Chu Kuangren did it. He unleashed a sword strike from thousands of kilometers away, and he could easily injure his opponent. I didn't want to interfere in your battle with Murongxian, but don't you think it's a little too much to use an emperor weapon against your opponent? Chu Kuangren said as he stared at Xiao Jingqian with a cold gaze. Although he had several emperor weapons with him, he would never use them when fighting against other sky prides of the same generation. Of course, no one in the same generation was worthy enough for him to use an emperor weapon. Chu Kuangren, what do you want? Xiao Jingchen took a deep breath. He knew that he was no match for Chu Kuangren, even if he had an emperor weapon. We'll take that supreme elixir. All right. Xiao Jingchen nodded. He had no intention of snatching it from Chu Kuangren. At least you know what's good for you. Chu Kuangren could not be bothered to argue with him. At that moment, a ray of red light suddenly shot into the sky from afar. That red light was quickly approaching the crowd, and a domineering aura was getting closer as well. Those with slightly weaker cultivations were already drenched in cold sweat. A red-haired lady with a voluptuous figure and a head full of red armor appeared above the crowd. There was a heroic aura in between her brows. Her phoenix eyes swept across the crowd, and not many dared to look her in the eye. It's her. It's the Bai family's Bai Hongyu. Bai Hongyu, one of the forbidden sky prides. Her combat strength is so strong that even the older generation can't compete with her. She's here at the Thousand Wonders Paradise too. The crowd was shocked. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren was sizing up Bai Hongyu with his eye of revelation. Her cultivation base, techniques, and other information were all displayed before Chu Kuangren. As the first forbidden sky pride that Chu Kuangren had encountered, her strength was indeed impressive. She was even stronger than some boundary emperors. Interesting. Perhaps these forbidden sky prides can surprise me. Chu Kuangren smirked. Bai Hongyu's gaze also landed on Chu Kuangren, and a strange look flashed across her eyes. You're Chu Kuangren? She had heard about Chu Kuangren from Xiao Jingchen back in the Nine Heavens. That's right. I dare you to take one attack from me. As soon as Bai Hongyu said that, a red light circulated around her body, and surging spiritual power surged from her body. One attack? Even if I take 10 or 100 attacks from you, what can you do to me if I stand still? Chu Kuangren stood with his hands behind his back, and his black hair danced in the wind. Very well, let me see how powerful a supreme sage is. Bai Hongyu yelled and gathered the surrounding spiritual qi with her hand. As soon as her palm landed, a terrifying surge of qi spread in all directions, forming a giant red palm that descended from the sky. Chapter 536. Bai Hongyu unleashed her palm attack, and a terrifying surge of palm qi spread in all directions. A red palm print then landed on Chu Kuangren. That domineering energy engulfed the space around Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren's expression did not change in the slightest. He stood still on the spot and unleashed a surge of mind power that turned into an invisible barrier. Bai Hongyu's palm qi was repelled when it was 3 meters away from Chu Kuangren, and it swept in all directions. In an instant, with Chu Kuangren at the center, the ground around him caved in, and a large amount of smoke and dust swept out in all directions. The spectating cultivators' expressions changed slightly, and they quickly retreated. What a terrifying palm qi! That attack alone is no weaker than a boundary emperor. Is this the combat strength of a forbidden sky pride? Forbidden sky prides are existences that most sky prides can't hope to reach. They really do live up to their reputation. The crowd of cultivators looked at the red figure in the air with awe in their eyes. Bai Hongyu stood in the air with a red light circulating around her body. Waves of spiritual power spread out, and there was an inviolable aura around her. A forbidden sky pride? That's all there is to it. At that moment, a voice was heard from the smoke and dust. The crowd looked over and saw a white-robed figure standing proudly on the spot after the smoke and dust had dissipated. It was Chu Kuangren, who was unscathed. The ground around Chu Kuangren had caved in, forming a huge crater. Countless cracks spread out and covered a radius of a few hundred meters. However, the ground within 3 meters around him was not damaged at all. He blocked it. How did he do it? I didn't see him do anything. This person's strength is unfathomable. If Bai Hongyu gave the crowd the impression that she was powerful and unshakable, then Chu Kuangren was like a bottomless abyss, unfathomable and unfathomable. Bai Hongyu glanced at Chu Kuangren with a hint of fear in her eyes. The supreme sage really lives up to his name. Xiao Jingchen, let's go. Now that the Thousand Wonders Grotto was about to open, she did not want to waste time with Chu Kuangren. If she was injured, she would be at a disadvantage against the other forbidden sky prides in the grotto. You come and go as you please. Aren't you looking down on me too much? At that moment, Chu Kuangren let out a chuckle. A surge of chilling aura instantly spread and enveloped the surroundings, locking onto Bai Hongyu. Hearing his words, Bai Hongyu's eyes turned cold. What? Could it be that you want to fight me before the heavens hollow opens? That's not necessarily the case. It's just that I'll take one move from you. Why don't you take one move from me as well? As Chu Kuangren lifted his arm, the spiritual power within his body surged. He slowly thrust his palm into the air. A terrifying palm print appeared out of thin air, containing a sense of sorrow. All the cultivators who saw this felt as if endless sorrow had been stirred up in their hearts, greatly reducing their fighting spirit. Emperor Art, Palm of Grief. Bai Hongyu's eyes narrowed. She waved both her palms, and a large amount of spiritual energy gushed out from her palms. A majestic Daoist rhyme gathered in the air, forming a massive red seal that was 10,000 feet in size. It collided with the Heaven's Morning Palm. Heaven's Morning Palm. When the two surges of energy collided, white cracks appeared in the void as if it was about to explode. The massive impact immediately spread outwards, sending Bai Hongyu flying thousands of feet away before she crashed into a mountain. That mountain instantly exploded. The crowd could not help but be dumbfounded. To them, a forbidden sky pride was already an unreachable existence. However, Chu Kuangren had sent a forbidden sky pride flying with a single palm strike. Such combat strength was unimaginable to them. Even Xiao Jingchen could not help but narrow his eyes. I can't believe that even Bai Hongyu is only a so-so in his hands. From afar, Bai Hongyu dashed out from the shattered mountain. The bright red armor on her body emitted bursts of red light as it trembled violently. After a while, the armor's abnormality finally disappeared. She looked at Chu Kuangren with an uncertain expression. If not for the armor's protection, that palm strike would have severely injured her on the spot. Chu Kuangren's combat strength was far beyond her imagination. Was a supreme sage really that terrifying? It's no wonder you're a sky pride from a great orthodoxy. You have so many treasures on you, and even the weapons you're wearing are top-notch boundary emperor weapons. Chu Kuangren looked at Bai Hongyu and said in amazement. The mind trigger technique. Are you related to the Seven Emotions sect? Bai Hongyu asked. Oh, the Seven Emotions sect. This is the second time I've heard of this name. Chu Kuangren murmured. Back when he was in the Wu clan, he had also used the Raging God Fist against the seven-colored sword servant, and they had also guessed that he was from the Seven Emotions sect. Now, Bai Hongyu had also mentioned this sect. That had piqued his interest. However, before Chu Kuangren could ask further, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the void. The clouds in the sky suddenly began to rumble. Patches of mountains and forests appeared in the sky out of nowhere. The crowd was ecstatic when they saw that. The Thousand Strange Grotto has opened. Someone cried out in surprise. Everyone looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky and rushed into the Thousand Wonders Grotto heaven. Bai Hongyu glanced at Chu Kuangren and said, Chu Kuangren, the grotto has opened. Let's save our battle for another day. Then, she turned into a ray of red light and rushed into the sky. Xiao Jingchen, Zhan Hongying, Tuba, and the others also made their moves. The Thousand Strange Grotto has opened. Sect leader, it's time for us to enter too. Murong Xian said. Let's go. Chu Kuangren brought the other two into the Thousand Strange Grotto. When they first entered the grotto, they saw a huge stretch of mountains and forests. Not only that, but Chu Kuangren could also feel the extremely dense spiritual qi fluctuations that were more than 10 times stronger than the outside world. In other words, cultivating here would be more than 10 times more efficient than cultivating in the outside world. What a generous cultivation environment! Chu Kuangren was amazed. However, the Thousand Strange Grotto only opened for about half a month each time. Once it was closed, it would disappear into the void, and it would take tens of thousands of years to open again. Otherwise, many people would be more than happy to stay here. Sect leader, now that we've entered the Thousand Strange Grotto, let's start our treasure hunt. Xianxia said excitedly. She knew that Chu Kuangren had the treasure locating skill, which was extremely useful in the secret realm. Yes, let me see if there are any opportunities of fortune around here. Chu Kuangren activated his treasure locating skill, and information about treasures within a 10,000-kilometer radius came one after another. Oh, this is indeed the Thousand Strange Grotto. There are quite a lot of treasures here. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. There were no less than 100 top-notch sage-grade treasures within a 10,000-kilometer radius around him. However, these were not very useful to Chu Kuangren and the others. He set his sights on boundary emperor-grade or even emperor-grade treasures. Oh, there's a boundary emperor-grade treasure 3,000 kilometers south. There's a boundary emperor-grade spirit or 1,000 kilometers ahead. Oh, there's a wilderness essence sword herb 21,000 kilometers away. This is an emperor-grade supreme medicine. Chu Kuangren chuckled and brought Xianxia and Murong Xian to collect all kinds of treasures in the Thousand Strange Grotto. Chapter 537. Inside the Thousand Strange Paradise, all the Skyprides were searching for their opportunities of fortune. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren, Xianxia, and Murong Xian had looted many treasures in the paradise. At this moment, they were heading towards an emperor-grade treasure. On top of a mountain, there was a verdant plant with sword-like leaves standing in the wind. As the wind blew past the supreme herb, it seemed to be mixed with fine sword qi. Wherever it passed, the surrounding flowers and plants were cut into pieces. At some unknown point in time, cultivators had surrounded the medicinal herb. Most of the cultivators were exuding a sharp aura. Most of these cultivators were swordsmen. Desolation Essence Swordgrass. This Thousand Strange Paradise is indeed extraordinary to be able to produce such a treasure. The Thousand Strange Paradise has countless opportunities of fortune. I can't believe it even produced an emperor-grade supreme herb like the Desolation Essence Swordgrass. Rumor has it that not only can this herb purify sword qi, but it also contains a powerful Daoist rhyme that allows a cultivator to form a powerful Desolation Essence sword physique. Although it's not as good as the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, it's definitely a great opportunity of fortune for sword cultivators. However, this herb is surrounded by sword qi. It's hard to get close to it. Let's see who's more capable then. Around the sword herb, a swordsman could not wait any longer. He took a step forward and approached the Desolation Essence swordgrass. However, when he was within 100 feet of the sword herb, the leaves of the sword herb moved slightly, and a silver-white sword qi shot out. That sword qi was extremely sharp. The swordsman's expression changed slightly, and he immediately drew his long sword and attacked. However, with a clang, the long sword in the swordsman's hand broke, and a line of blood appeared on his neck. With a puff, a mist of blood gushed out, and the swordsman's head was separated from his body. What a powerful sword qi! It's no weaker than a sage ruler. As expected, it's not that easy to take away this sword herb. This sword herb has a spirit of its own, and it's a peerless swordsman. The surrounding swordsmen looked at the sword herb with fear in their eyes. At that moment, a few more figures came from afar. The few of them exuded a powerful sword qi as they stared at the sword grass with desire in their eyes. It's the Qin family, the Wang family, and the Divine Heaven Sword sect. Look, the person at the front seems to be Qin Feng of the Qin clan. Rumor has it that this person is the top genius of the Qin clan, second only to Qin Tianchen. He is not far from being a forbidden genius. His combat strength is extremely close to a quasi-emperor. There's also that young man in white. He's Mo Yifan from the Divine Heaven Sword sect. He's also a famous top genius. Wang Su from the Wang clan is here as well. The arrival of a peerless genius caused everyone to discuss. As for the Desolation Essence Sword Grass, it felt threatened and the sword aura it emitted became even more intense. Sword Qi Sword, forming a sword domain that spanned hundreds of meters. No one dared to rashly rely on the sword grass. The few heaven's favorites hovered in the air and stared at the sword grass with a strange look in their eyes. This sword grass is really extraordinary. It has such an aura. If I can refine it, my Desolation Essence sword body will definitely reach another level. Wang Su from the Wang clan stared at the sword grass with burning eyes. He had the Desolation Essence sword body, one of the 3,000 constitutions. His talent in the sword Dao was second only to the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. If he could refine this sword grass, his Desolation Essence sword body would definitely reach another level. He might even be able to contend against the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. Therefore, among everyone present, Wang Su desired the sword grass the most. However, he knew that the rest of the heaven's favorites would definitely not let him have the sword grass so easily. Everyone, I wonder if you can give me some face and let me have this sword grass. I will reward you greatly in the future. Wang Su cupped his fists and said to the top geniuses of the Divine Heaven Sword sect and the Qin clan. Qin Feng smiled in disdain. Are you kidding me? You want us to give up on the Desolation Essence sword grass with just one sentence? Impossible. Who knows what will happen in the future? However, this sword grass is an opportunity right in front of us. The young man in white, Mo Yifan, also said. In that case, you guys are not giving face to the Wang clan. Wang Su's face darkened. Wang clan? Putting aside the fact that the Wang clan is only a branch clan in the Emperor's Road, even if you are the main clan, why would the Qin clan be afraid? Qin Feng said proudly. It seems like the Qin clan is too arrogant just because they have Qin Tianchen, Wang Su said coldly. Qin Tianchen, the forbidden genius of the Qin clan. Rumor had it that he was the reincarnation of a martial emperor. His combat strength far surpassed those in the same cultivation realm. Even among the forbidden geniuses, he was an extremely terrifying existence. So what? My clan brother is unparalleled and will definitely ascend to the throne in the future. At the mention of Qin Tianchen, Qin Feng's face was filled with admiration. Alright, Brother Wang, don't think that we will give it up. If you want the sword grass, then it will depend on your own abilities. Mo Yifan said. Suddenly, an invisible sword Qi appeared in his hand and slashed at the Desolation Essence sword grass. The invisible sword Qi turned into a storm and instantly destroyed the sword Qi around the Desolation Essence sword grass. That's the Divine Heaven Sword Qi of the Divine Heaven Sword sect. A sword cultivator exclaimed. The Divine Heaven Sword sect was one of the sects on the Emperor's Road that specialized in sword Dao. Their Divine Heaven Sword Qi was a famous sword Dao technique on the Emperor's Road. After the sword Qi broke the sword grass's domain, Mo Yifan's figure flashed. His palm was covered in a layer of sword Qi and he reached out to grab the sword grass. But at that moment, a sword Qi slashed at him. It was Wang Su. Mo Yifan didn't dare to be careless facing Wang Su's sword Qi. He used the Divine Heaven Sword Qi again and blocked it. The Desolation Essence sword body that's second only to the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. I've been wanting to see it for a long time. Come on. Mo Yifan knew that he had to defeat the geniuses present to get the sword grass. The divine heaven sword chi slashed out. Dense spiritual force exploded and turned into a dazzling sword aura that surged at Wang Su. Wang Su held a colorful longsword in his hand. When he slashed out, the power of the 5 elements exploded. 1,000 edge of gold. Countless golden sword chi interweaved to form a sword shadow that was thousands of feet long and clashed with the divine heaven sword chi. While the 2 geniuses were fighting, Qin Feng dashed toward the sword grass. But as soon as he moved, Wang Su and Mo Yifan targeted him. The 2 of them slashed at the same time and separated him from the sword grass. The 3 sword Dao geniuses each took a position and faced each other. Looks like if I don't beat the 2 of you into submission first, this sword grass won't belong to me. That's what I was thinking. The 3 of them stood in the air. 3 different sword-based Daoist rhymes clashed in the air. The air around them seemed to be filled with a formless sharp aura. The other geniuses didn't dare to get close. The top geniuses were fighting. Everyone's eyes were shining, unwilling to leave. But just as the 3 geniuses were about to fight, an aura that was even colder than the 3 geniuses exploded in the distance and shrouded the surroundings. The 3 geniuses' expressions changed when they sensed this aura. 2 sword auras flew over. One of them was wearing a golden robe. Sword chi flowed around him, emitting a powerful sword-based Daoist rhyme. The swords of all the sword cultivators present trembled involuntarily under this Daoist rhyme. This phenomenon made everyone's eyes narrow. This Daoist rhyme is the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. It's the sword Dao disciple. Chapter 538. Jian Daozi. The 3 sword Dao geniuses who were about to fight were shocked when they saw Jian Daozi. They were top-notch geniuses, but there was still a gap between them and a taboo genius like Jian Daozi. I didn't expect this guy to be here. This is going to be troublesome. The sword Dao geniuses looked at Jian Daozi with fear in their eyes. Jian Daozi looked at Wang Su and the others with an indifferent expression, as if he was looking at a few ants. I want this desolate Yuan swordgrass. Jian Daozi said lightly. His attitude showed that he didn't care about the sword Dao geniuses at all. In fact, as the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart and the most dazzling genius in the Emperor's path of sword Dao, he indeed didn't care about the other sword Dao geniuses. Jian Daozi, you want this desolate Yuan swordgrass just like that? Aren't you being a little overbearing? Qin Feng couldn't help but ask. When Jian Daozi heard this, he focused his sword finger and casually slashed out. A golden sword chi with a piercingly cold sword-based Daoist rhyme instantly locked onto Qin Feng. Qin Feng's pupils shrank. He growled and slashed out with his sword, but he was forced back. The hand holding the sword trembled uncontrollably, and the webbing between his thumb and forefinger was torn open and bleeding. You can't even take a single slash from me, and you still have the nerve to yell here? Jian Daozi said lightly. Sword chi circulated around him, making him look like a sword god. Jian Chongfeng, who had entered the Thousand Wonders Grotto Heaven with Jian Daozi, couldn't help but be shocked. Just a clone already possessed such strength. Jian Daozi was indeed a taboo genius. He was indeed terrifying. In terms of sword Dao, perhaps only his master could surpass him. Jian Daozi, if my clan brother was here, he wouldn't let you act so presumptuously. Qin Feng couldn't defeat Jian Daozi, so he used the Qin clan's taboo genius in an attempt to regain some face. Jian Daozi's eyes flickered with a strange look. Qin Tianchen? He didn't come to the Thousand Wonders Grotto Heaven? Humph, my clan brother is in seclusion. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the chance to strut around. Since Qin Tianchen isn't here, where do you get the courage to speak to me like this? Jian Daozi snorted and slashed out with his sword again. The sword chi swept out again like a storm. Qin Feng was engulfed by the storm. He bellowed and brandished the long sword in his hand, sending out sword chi to defend against the storm. However, the effect was minimal. The sword chi storm grew denser and fiercer. Finally, Qin Feng was closed in by countless rays of sword chi as more and more sword chi appeared on his body. Not long later, Qin Feng's body was covered with dozens of deep wounds, and he fell to the ground, dripping with blood. When the surrounding sword cultivators saw this, they looked at Jian Daozi with respect in their eyes. He could casually crush a top prodigy. Such battle prowess was indeed worthy of being a forbidden prodigy. Damn it, Qin Feng looked up at Jian Daozi with fear in his eyes. He had never imagined that the difference in strength between him and Jian Daozi would be so great. Forbidden prodigies and other prodigies were on two completely different levels. For Qin Tianqian's sake, I'll spare your life. Jian Daozi looked at Qin Feng and said. Then, he looked around coldly. Is there anyone else who wants to snatch the Desolation Essence Swordgrass from me? No one dared to answer. The strength that Jian Daozi had displayed had shocked everyone present. The exquisite 9 orifices sword heart's amplification of the sword Dao is too great, and it can even suppress sword cultivators. We are no match for him. As long as we are sword cultivators, we will naturally be suppressed by Jian Daozi. Jian Daozi's strength is unrivaled among the younger generation, apart from the forbidden prodigies. If he gets his hands on the Desolation Essence Swordgrass, I wonder how strong he will become. There is a high chance that he will become an emperor in this era. The crowd thought to themselves. Jian Daozi had almost single-handedly suppressed all the sword cultivators on the emperor's path. Jian Daozi looked around, and when he saw that no one dared to resist him, he looked at the Desolation Essence Swordgrass not far away. This item was extremely useful to him, especially to this clone of his. He knew that this body of his was only a clone and could not use the full power of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. If he could refine the Desolation Essence Swordgrass, his clone would have the Desolation Essence Sword body. Coupled with the Daoist rhymes of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, the clone's strength would be comparable to the main body. Jian Daozi's eyes flashed with excitement when he thought of this, and he raised his hand to grab the Desolation Essence Swordgrass. You can't touch it. At that moment, a leisurely voice came from the void. Then, an extremely tyrannical aura that was even more terrifying than Jian Daozi's swept over the sky. Under this aura, all the swordsmen could not help but let their swords fly out of their hands and float in the air, as if they were facing a myriad of blades. This aura, could it be? Jian Daozi seemed to have thought of something, and his deep eyes looked into the distance. The crowd also looked toward the source of the aura. They saw a white-robed, black-haired young man slowly walking toward them. The newcomer was handsome and had the bearing of a celestial being. Jian Daozi snorted coldly when he saw the newcomer. How dare you play around with your sword Dao in front of me? You've overestimated yourself. The sword-based Daoist rhyme that erupted from his body shrouded the entire area, attempting to control the long swords that were surrounding Chu Kuangren. However, no matter how much he channeled his Daoist rhyme, the long swords that were surrounding Chu Kuangren did not budge an inch. The crowd gulped as they watched. Jian Daozi is being suppressed by someone in terms of sword Dao? My goodness, where did this person come from? How can he have such a powerful sword Dao? I can't imagine. Based on what everyone knew, the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart was the strongest constitution for the way of the sword. Jian Daozi, who possessed the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart and had been heavily nurtured by the sword clan, should have been unparalleled in the way of the sword. Even the older generation of sword cultivators would find it difficult to suppress him in terms of sword Dao. However, that perception had been shattered by Chu Kuangren. Even among the younger generation, Jian Daozi's sword Dao cultivation was not invincible. There was someone who was even more brilliant than him. Master, Jian Changfeng stared at Chu Kuangren, who was facing the 10,000 swords attack with a hint of passion that was hard to detect in his eyes. However, he quickly hit it well. Jian Daozi's attention was fully focused on Chu Kuangren, so he did not notice Jian Changfeng's strange reaction. This person's sword-based Daoist rhyme has reached such a level. Jian Daozi looked at Chu Kuangren with a serious expression. He knew that Chu Kuangren possessed the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, but even if they both had the same exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, there would still be a difference in strength. Jian Daozi was heavily nurtured by the swordsmen, and he had access to countless sword Dao resources ever since he began his cultivation. Even if a skypride from the outside world had the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, how could he be compared to him? Hence, Jian Daozi had never taken Chu Kuangren seriously. However, he had no choice but to take Chu Kuangren seriously now. Is this the extent of your exquisite 9 orifices sword heart? Or could it be that this clone of yours doesn't allow you to unleash your full strength? Chu Kuangren looked at Jian Daozi with a playful look on his face. Upon hearing that, Jian Daozi's eyes narrowed. He could not believe that Chu Kuangren had exposed his identity as a clone. Chapter 539. It seems that not only are you skilled in swordsmanship, but you also have good eyesight. I can't believe you can tell that this body of mine is just a clone. Jian Daozi said indifferently. The method of refining this avatar of his was extremely brilliant, and he had spent countless resources to create it. It looked no different from a normal person, and it could even cultivate and progress like a cultivator. Even if an emperor came in person, they would not be able to see the slightest flaw. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to see through him. The exchange between Chu Kuangren and Jian Daozi shocked the sword cultivators present. Especially Qin Feng, who was in disbelief. A clone? The Jian Daozi in front of him was just a clone. However, this clone had been able to defeat him with a wave of his hand. Just how powerful was Jian Daozi's true self? Chu Kuangren looked at Jian Daozi and said, I might be interested if you were here in your real body, but a clone? How boring. After that, Chu Kuangren ignored him and walked towards the Desolation Essence Swordgrass. Even if it's just a clone, I, Jian Daozi, am not someone that can be underestimated. Chu Kuangren, don't be too arrogant. Jian Daozi snorted and slashed out with his sword. A violent sword chi swept towards Chu Kuangren like a hurricane. However, Chu Kuangren did not even look at it. Instead, he formed a sword finger and casually slashed it. A purple sword ray instantly pierced through the night sky like a meteor. Instantly, the tempest of sword chi was slashed apart by the finger. The violet sword light slammed into Jian Daozi, sending him flying back nearly 300 meters. He slammed into the ground like a meteor, causing a huge crater to appear. Jian Daozi lay in the middle of the crater, looking bedraggled. There was a bone-deep sword wound on his body that almost sliced him in half. Copious amounts of blood gushed out from it. The crowd was dumbfounded when they saw that. Jian Daozi, who was almost invincible in swordsmanship, was defeated so easily. That scene was too shocking. How weak. Chu Kuangren said nonchalantly. He then ignored the sword chi from the Desolation Essence Swordgrass and grabbed it before throwing it into his yin and yang ring. The Desolation Essence Swordgrass was an Emperor-grade supreme medicine that had a certain effect on him. The Desolation Essence sword body was secondary, but the sword chi could be improved. Sir Daoist, you're just a clone now. You're no match for Chu Kuangren. Please leave first. Jian Changfeng arrived in front of Jian Daozi and said. All right. After witnessing Chu Kuangren's techniques, Jian Daozi nodded and left the scene with Jian Changfeng's help. Chu Kuangren chuckled as he watched Jian Daozi leave. Jian Daozi, the game between you and me has just begun. So you're Chu Kuangren, the one who killed my brother Wang Tianteng. At that moment, Wang Su looked at Chu Kuangren with an unfriendly gaze. Wang Tianteng, let me think about it. I think I've killed quite a lot of sky prides. Chu Quanren was deep in thought. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched when they saw him like this. Wang Tianteng could be considered a famous heaven's chosen one in the 9 heavens. He still wanted to think about it. How many prodigies did he kill? Oh, I remember now. There was such a person. Chu Quanren nodded. Why? Do you want to avenge him? He looked at Wang Su and asked faintly. His gaze was as calm as water. Wang Su, on the other hand, felt a chill run down his spine when he heard that. He had no doubt that if he dared to say yes, he would face a sword chi that even Jian Daozi could not handle. No. Wang Su shook his head and took 2 steps back. Chu Quanren ignored him when he heard that. Not far away, Murong Xian and Shang Qingxue caught up. They were not surprised when they found out that Chu Quanren had obtained the Desolation Essence Swordgrass. Soon, the 3 of them left the scene. Looking at their backs as they left, Mo Yifan from the Divine Heaven Sword sect could not help but exclaim, even someone as strong as Jian Daozi could not withstand a single move from him. His combat strength is almost unimaginable. I can't believe there's such a forbidden sky pride in the outside world. Humph, when the forbidden sky pride of the Wang family arrives, we'll definitely subdue him. Wang Su said coldly. The Wang family had its forbidden sky pride too. At another location, Jian Daozi and Jian Changfeng arrived at a cave in the Thousand Wonders Paradise. After consuming a precious medicinal pill, Jian Daozi went into closed-door meditation. After half a day, his injuries gradually recovered. A vicious look appeared on his face. Chu Quanren, how dare you injure my clone to this extent? If it weren't for the golden pill of rejuvenation hidden in my body, this clone would have died here. D*M*. Before this, the only reason he wanted to kill Chu Quanren was because he did not want a second exquisite 9 orifices sword heart to appear in this world. Now, however, he wanted to kill Chu Quanren because he hated him. After venting his hatred, Jian Daozi took a deep breath. This person's strength is indeed powerful. I'm afraid he's no weaker than my real self. It won't be easy to kill him. Now, let's get the white spirit divine fruit from the Thousand Wonders Paradise first. With that fruit, I'll have a higher chance of ascending to the Emperor realm. Beside him, Jian Changfeng's eyes lit up when he heard that, but he quickly averted his gaze. Changfeng, you've worked hard to protect me. I'll give you this spirit fruit. Jian Daozi took out a spirit fruit and gave it to Jian Changfeng. Thank you, Master Daozi. Jian Changfeng accepted the spirit fruit excitedly. Jian Daozi's face revealed a look of disdain when he saw that. That spirit fruit was nothing to him, but it could be used to buy people's hearts. Master Daozi, I'll go patrol the surroundings to see if Chu Quanren and the others have chased after us, Jian Changfeng said. All right. After leaving the cave, Jian Changfeng cast a seal around the surroundings to prevent spiritual thoughts from prying. Then, he took out a communication compass. Master, oh, the white spirit divine fruit? Chu Quanren turned off the communication with Jian Changfeng with a look of surprise in his eyes. One of the legendary 10 great spirit fruits. Now this is interesting. There were countless supreme spirit fruits in this world. The 10 great spirit fruits were the 10 most revered spirit fruits by cultivators throughout the ages. Each of them had the ability to steal the fortune of the world. Although an emperor-grade treasure like the Wilderness Essence Swordgrass was precious, it was still a distance away from the 10 great spirit fruits. The white spirit divine fruit was one of them. It was said that not only could this divine fruit increase one's cultivation level and improve one's aptitude, but it could also allow a cultivator to enter a higher state of enlightenment. According to the records, there was once an honorable realm cultivator who consumed the white spirit divine fruit and entered a state of enlightenment for 3 days and 3 nights. When he woke up, his understanding of the Tao was no weaker than an emperor's. Later on, he even found his own Tao and became an emperor in less than 100 years, dominating an entire era. That showed how powerful the white spirit divine fruit was. Even with the countless opportunities of fortune in the Thousand Wonders Grotto, the white spirit divine fruit was still very rare. I can't miss out on the white spirit divine fruit. Jian Daozi, you've really surprised me. Chu Quanren smiled in satisfaction. It was easy for him to kill Jian Daozi, but so what? Killing an ant that posed no threat to him would not make him happy. Casting a long line to catch a big fish was the right way. Chapter 540. The opening of the Thousand Strange Grotto Heaven attracted many geniuses from the Emperor's Road. Even those forbidden geniuses who rarely showed themselves came to fight for the opportunity, just to have a little more hope of becoming an emperor when the emperor position appeared. Somewhere in the Thousand Strange Grotto Heaven. Roar! A furious roar rang out as a terrifying white behemoth covered in baleful energy chased after a female cultivator. The female cultivator wore a white dress. Her black hair draped over her shoulders, and her skin was smooth, giving off a cold feeling. Although she was being chased by the beast, there was no trace of fear on her face. It was not that she was confident, but that she was born without any emotions. I didn't expect the celestial ice-cold python to be so powerful. I was too careless. The female cultivator looked at the beast chasing after her and murmured. The beast was a giant python, over 1,000 feet long. There was a crystal white horn on its head, and its snow-white scales gave off a chilling aura. Everywhere it went, a thick layer of frost formed on the ground. Roar! The celestial ice-cold python roared, and a large amount of chilling aura gushed out from its throat. Heavenly Frost Shield! The female cultivator shouted, and a large amount of chilling aura also came out of her body, forming an ice shield in front of her. But when the two came into contact, the ice shield shattered. Both were formed from chilling aura, but the celestial ice-cold python's chilling aura was undoubtedly more terrifying. It could actually freeze. A large amount of ice swept out, and the female cultivator was pushed back hundreds of feet. With her as the center, the surrounding 1,000 miles were all covered in chilling aura. Mountains, rivers, grass, trees, everything in the world was frozen in the blink of an eye. Everything in sight was silvery white, like a world of ice. The female cultivator's body was also covered in a layer of frost, but she used her spiritual energy to shake off the frost. Human genius, you are very powerful to be able to last so long against me. The celestial ice-cold python said coldly. It was a beast born in the Thousand Strange Grotto Heaven. After cultivating for so many years, it had already gained intelligence. Ice-cold python, I can give you some compensation, and this matter will be over. How about it? The female cultivator looked at the celestial ice-cold python and said. Humph, you should die for coveting my horn. There is no way we can reconcile. Looks like I have no choice but to fight to the death, the female cultivator said softly, a look of determination in her eyes. Go to hell. The celestial ice-cold python opened its mouth and spat out a large amount of cold air, like a surging river of ice. The strength of this cold chi already rivaled that of a peak quasi-emperor. When the female cultivator saw this, an extremely mysterious Daoist rhyme appeared in her hand. The Daoist rhyme condensed into a white seal in the void and shot towards the cold air. Heavenly Wind Seal. The huge seal collided with the cold air, and the two forces collided. The heavenly wind seal was gradually frozen. The female cultivator also began to show signs of exhaustion. She raised her hand and condensed the spiritual power in her body again. Her eyes were shrouded in a layer of cold indifference. Supreme Forgetting Emotion Finger. With a point of his finger, a huge finger energy appeared out of thin air. That finger exuded a chill that seemed to be able to freeze one's heart. It wasn't a natural chill, but a chill that came from the heart. There was a loud explosion. The cold air was forcefully shattered by the finger energy, and it landed on the celestial ice-cold python's body. Amidst the explosion, a large number of snow-white scales shattered, and blood gushed out, dyeing the celestial ice-cold python's entire head red. I did it. Even though the female cultivator had an indifferent personality, she still couldn't help but show a hint of joy when she saw this. Roar. However, at that moment, the celestial ice-cold python roared into the sky, and an even more terrifying murderous aura was released along with the cold air. B****, how dare you hurt me? The celestial ice-cold python roared, and its bloodshot eyes stared coldly at the female cultivator. After receiving the female cultivator's most powerful attack, although it was injured, its aura was still extremely powerful and terrifying. His physical body is even more terrifying. The female cultivator said in surprise. One should know that the power of her finger was enough to kill a quasi-emperor, but it only made the celestial ice-cold python bleed a little. Such a powerful physical body was far beyond the scope of what the female cultivator could handle. Emperors, only emperor-level attacks can kill this celestial ice-cold python. The female cultivator said helplessly. At that moment, the enraged celestial ice-cold python had already launched an attack at her. It opened its mouth and pounced toward her, trying to swallow her whole. The female cultivator wanted to dodge, but she realized that the cold air around her had already frozen her feet. Looks like I'm going to die here today. It's a pity that I still have many things to do. In the face of death, the female cultivator's expression didn't change much, but her heart uncontrollably raced up. A strange emotion surged in her heart. Could this be fear? Was it the instinctive fear of death? Just as the female cultivator was about to be buried in the python's stomach, a sword light suddenly cut through the air. The sword light was like a meteor that cut through the sky, and it landed on the celestial ice-cold python's single horn. The single horn could be said to be the hardest part of the celestial ice-cold python's body, and the moment it collided with the sword light, there was a burst of dazzling sparks. The sparks flew, and then there was a crisp sound, as though something had cracked. The single horn had actually cracked from the sword chi. The celestial ice-cold python couldn't care less about the female cultivator anymore. With its single horn destroyed, it could not help but let out a shrill scream. B****, who is it that dares to sneak an attack on me? The celestial ice-cold python roared as it looked around. From afar, a black-haired figure in a white robe was walking through the air towards it. The female cultivator looked over and was momentarily dazed. She had seen all kinds of people since she was young, and that naturally included countless so-called handsome men. However, no matter who it was, none of them could make the female cultivator's emotions fluctuate. Now, the female cultivator realized that her heart seemed to have skipped a beat. It was a little similar to how she felt when she was facing death, but it was also a little different. The female cultivator was a little confused. What kind of feeling was this? Could this be what her senior brothers and sisters in the sect meant by being moved? However, she didn't have much time to think about it. The person who had arrived, which was Chu Kuangren, had already confronted the celestial ice-cold python. Human, how dare you sneak an attack on me? You're dead meat. Little snake, I've taken a fancy to that horn on your head. Give it to me, and I might spare your life. Chu Kuangren said calmly. As for the female cultivator beside him, it was as if he had completely ignored her. No matter how beautiful she was not as attractive as the celestial ice-cold python before him. Another one who wants my single horn. Let's see if you're capable enough to take it. The celestial ice-cold python let out an angry roar. Its huge body trembled, and the single horn on its head emitted a white light. A large amount of cold chi escaped and covered half the sky. Then, countless ice spikes were shot towards Chu Kuangren like a storm. Looks like I'll have to take it by force. Chu Quanren swung the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand, and a majestic sword chi poured out, enveloping the sky full of ice spikes. The countless ice spikes were shattered one by the sword ray. That attack alone had shocked the female cultivator who was watching the battle from below. With such combat strength, which orthodoxy's forbidden sky pride is he from? Chapter 541. What a powerful sword chi! Chu Quanren's sword chi surprised the female cultivator. She had seen some forbidden sky prides before, but very few of them had Chu Quanren's combat strength. Just one strand of sword chi was not something an ordinary quasi-emperor could block. Which orthodoxy's forbidden sky pride is this guy from? While the female cultivator was still in shock, the battle between Chu Quanren and the celestial frost python had already begun. The celestial frost python's combat strength was extremely powerful. It could be said to be the strongest wild beast Chu Quanren had ever faced. Its combat strength was comparable to a top-notch boundary emperor, and its physical body was so tough that even a top-notch boundary emperor would have a hard time breaking through its defenses. However, to Chu Quanren, this was not too difficult of a task. With the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand, he unleashed wave after wave of sword chi that landed on the celestial frost python's body, leaving behind streaks of bloody wounds. Although the wounds were not deep enough to be fatal, the celestial frost python screamed in agony. B****, human, I'm going to kill you. I will kill you. The enraged celestial frost python waved its body around and spewed out frosty chi. Everything within a 10,000-kilometer radius shook because of its rage. Countless rivers and forests were frozen by the frosty chi. Not long after, the 10,000-kilometer radius turned into a world of ice and snow. Everything withered, and there was no sign of life. Meanwhile, Chu Quanren wandered in the frosty chi with sword chi surrounding his body. No matter how angry the celestial frost python was, it could not hurt him at all. You better look up at the sky if you want to kill me. At that moment, Chu Quanren suddenly said. In the sky, countless blue-veined patterns intertwined with each other, condensing into a huge rune that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Within the rune, there was an endless amount of lightning energy that surged and radiated with a terrifying heavenly might. It was the Emperor-grade Thunder Talisman. Is this power the heavenly tribulation? How can this be? How can anyone in this world master the power of heavenly tribulation? The python was a little confused. At that moment, a ferocious lightning dragon suddenly emerged from the giant Emperor-grade rune and charged towards the celestial frost python. Accompanied by a deafening roar, the majestic thunder dragon swooped down from the sky towards the celestial ice frost python. Lei Long's body was several times larger than the celestial ice cold python. Its might was so strong that the scales on the celestial ice cold python's body rapidly trembled, constantly emitting cold air as it roared and clashed with Lei Long. The terrifying lightning energy mixed with the cold air rapidly exploded, spreading in all directions. The void was swaying, and the mountains and rivers were shaking. The unknown female cultivator urged the remaining spiritual power in her body to resist the energy waves that were pouring down like a flood. The celestial ice frost python was enduring the lightning dragon's attack. A large amount of lightning energy flowed into the wounds that Chu Quanren had inflicted on its body, constantly destroying its body structure. Its originally white body gradually turned black, as if it had been roasted. Not long after, when the lightning dragon dissipated, the huge sky ice-cold python also fell to the ground. The cold air on its body dissipated, leaving only steam. Bastard! The dying celestial ice frost python stared at Chu Quanren and did not forget to curse. Chu Quanren did not hesitate either. He raised his sword, and with a flash of sword ray, he chopped off the celestial ice-cold python's horn on the spot. That horn was the most important thing to the celestial ice-cold python. It was already heavily injured, and now that the horn was gone, the celestial ice-cold python was completely dead. Chu Kuangren held the horn in his hand and felt the cold air that was emitting from it. He smirked. This horn is indeed a valuable treasure to Qingshui. Shang Qingshui was a frost Dao cultivator, and the celestial ice-cold python's horn was a frost attribute treasure, so it was very compatible with her. Fellow Daoist, I'm Leng Ningyu from the Seven Emotions sect. Could you please give me your horn? I'm willing to exchange it with a treasure of equal value. At that moment, the unknown female cultivator said to Chu Kuangren. Leng Ningyu from the Seven Emotions sect? Chu Kuangren had a strange look in his eyes when he heard that. He had heard of the Seven Emotions sect's name a few times. As for the name Leng Ningyu, the mystic sword guard had given him some information about Jian Daozi. If he remembered correctly, Jian Daozi had always been obsessed with this Leng Ningyu. At that thought, Chu Kuangren revealed a playful look. He then activated his Eye of Revelation to check on Leng Ningyu's information. Leng Ningyu, the sacred lady of the Seven Emotions sect, the forbidden skypride of the Emperor's path. She cultivates the Seven Emotions sect's supreme technique, the Regal Oblivion technique. She's now a seventh-step sage ruler. Her combat strength is comparable to the top boundary emperors. Chu Kuangren analyzed the information about Leng Ningyu. Then, he played with the celestial ice-cold python's horn in his hand and pondered. A cultivator who cultivated the Regal Oblivion technique? A cultivator like that could forsake love and emotions. They were the top cultivators, and they were also the cultivators with the least weaknesses. What weaknesses could a person who could forsake love and emotions have? At that thought, Chu Kuangren looked at Leng Ningyu as if she was a piece of cold rock. He was not interested in her at all. If she still had feelings for him, that would be a different story. Just the fact that she was the love interest of Jian Daozi was enough to make use of her. However, she had forsaken love and was just like a piece of rock. There were very few loopholes that could be used against a person like that. I'm sorry, but this horn is useful to me. Goodbye. No matter how good-looking she was, Chu Kuangren still saw her as a piece of cold rock. He had no interest in interacting with her at all. He responded casually, and his figure turned into a sword light, quickly disappearing from where he was. Leng Ningyu frowned as she watched him leave. She did not know why, but Chu Kuangren's gaze just now made her feel displeased. In the past, many people had looked at her the same way, but her emotions had never wavered. But now, she felt uncomfortable. Chu Kuangren seemed to be different from the others. Why? This was clearly the first time the two of them had met. The more Leng Ningyu thought about it, the more she felt like there was a ball of fire burning in her heart. Pfft! Leng Ningyu immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was slightly pale. Oh no, there seems to be some problems with my path of forgetfulness. Leng Ningyu frowned and quickly calmed her emotions. It was not difficult for her because she was a cultivator of the path of forgetfulness. Calming her emotions was a piece of cake. After a while, Leng Ningyu's face gradually returned to normal. She kept the Skysis python's corpse into her yin and yang ring. Although it's no longer horn, this Skysis python is still an extremely cold beast. It can also suppress honorable teacher's fire poison. She murmured and then looked in the direction where Chu Kuangren left. This man almost made me lose control of my path of forgetfulness. How terrifying. It looks like I need to be more careful when I meet him in the future. Leng Ningyu did not know why she had such an unusual emotional fluctuation when she met Chu Kuangren. To her, this situation was many times more terrifying than facing the Skysis python. Chapter 542. After killing the celestial frost python, Chu Kuangren took the horn to a mountain peak. He then handed the horn to Shang Qingshui. Thank you, sect leader. Looking at the horn in her hand, Xianxia could clearly feel the powerful frosty Daoist rhyme contained within it. If she could gain enlightenment from it, her strength would definitely rise again. She was touched at that thought. She knew very well how terrifying a beast with a horn like that was. Not many in the entire Emperor's path could handle it. However, just because that item was useful to her, Chu Kuangren went to kill the celestial frost python and obtained it. Chu Kuangren could be said to be ruthless to his enemies, but he was very gentle to his own people. That was also the reason why the Black Heaven sect respected him so much. Looking at the time, it's been 3 days since we entered the Thousand Strange Paradise, right? Chu Kuangren said. Yes, we've gained a lot of opportunities of fortune and treasures in these 3 days. Murong Xian said excitedly. With Chu Kuangren's treasure locating skill and their unparalleled strength, they had obtained many treasures and opportunities of fortune in these 3 days. As long as they left this place and found a place to digest these opportunities of fortune, their strength would definitely improve. I wonder how Jian Daozi is doing. Chu Kuangren rubbed his chin and muttered. Although they had collected many opportunities of fortune in these 3 days, Chu Kuangren was still concerned about the white spirit fruit that Jian Daozi had mentioned. That was one of the 10 great spirit fruits. Even for him, it was of great use. Just as he was thinking about that, the communication compass on his body vibrated. It was a message from Jian Changfeng. Oh, there's a result. Let me see, is it in the southeast direction? Chu Kuangren looked into the distance and grinned at Murong Xian. Let's go, it's time to reel in the net. After Jian Daozi was severely injured by Chu Kuangren, he spent a day and a night recovering. Following that, he searched for some opportunities of fortune in the Thousand Strange Paradise before he began to search for the white spirit fruit. Tens of thousands of years ago, the ancestors of the Sword Clan came to the Thousand Wonders Grotto Heaven and found the white spirit fruit. However, the fruit was not ripe and could not be picked easily. Therefore, they set up a seal and waited for the Thousand Wonders Grotto Heaven to reopen before they could pick it. Unfortunately, the heavens are unpredictable. Before the Thousand Wonders abode could open again, that senior had already perished and only left behind this map. Jian Daozi said, holding a map in his hand. On the map, there was a dot of light moving about, indicating Jian Daozi's current location. Tens of thousands of kilometers away from Jian Daozi's dot of light was another dot of light, which was none other than the white spirit fruit. As long as I can get this white spirit fruit, why should I worry about not being able to ascend to the throne? Jian Daozi's eyes shone with confidence. His own talent already had a high chance of breaking through to the Arch realm. With the addition of the white spirit divine fruit, he would far surpass the other forbidden prodigies. Thinking of this, his face revealed an irrepressible excitement. Changfeng shall congratulate you first, Master Daozi, Jian Changfeng said to Jian Daozi. Ha, Changfeng, when I become an emperor in the future, I will not mistreat you. In the future, both you and Mayer will be my right-hand man. Jian Daozi said with a faint smile. Jian Changfeng and the Mystic Sword Guard were the top sky prides of the younger generation of the Sword Clan. They could be said to be the future pillars of the Sword Clan. By subduing them first, Jian Changfeng had basically gained control of the Sword Clan in advance. Thank you, Master Daozi, for your generosity, Jian Changfeng said excitedly. Not long after, Jian Daozi and Jian Changfeng arrived at a mountain range. This mountain range looked ordinary, but in reality, it was full of hidden dangers. There were many restrictive spells set up inside, and if someone rashly barged in and triggered the restrictive spells, even a quasi-emperor expert would not have a good time. However, Jian Daozi was confident because the map left behind by that senior of the Sword Clan had recorded a safe route. As long as he followed the map, he would not trigger any seals. Let's go. Jian Daozi took the lead and stepped into the mountain range. Not long after, Chu Kuangren and the other two arrived. Looking at the ordinary mountain range in front of him, Chu Kuangren's spiritual thought surged. He knew that there were countless seals set up here. These seals were not too difficult for him. If he used brute force to break them, it would only take him 2 or 3 attacks. However, that would undoubtedly alert the enemy. It would not be good if he scared Jian Daozi and made him wary. He still needed Jian Daozi to lead him to the spirit fruit. It's a pity that the white spirit divine fruit is also protected by seals. Otherwise, my treasure locating skill would have easily found it. Chu Kuangren shook his head and said, "Sect leader, look over there." At that moment, Murong Xian pointed in a direction and said. Not far away, there were a few fragments of the spiritual source on the ground. "Oh, this is the mark that Jian Chongfeng left for us. Not bad." Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction. With the mark, they could follow the safe route that Jian Daozi had taken. Deep in the mountain range, there was a green pond. The water of this pond was filled with an extremely dense spiritual qi. The water was actually an extremely pure spiritual liquid. Just this spiritual liquid alone was comparable to tens of thousands of kilograms of spiritual source. In the middle of the pond, there was a strange emerald green fruit tree that was about the height of a human. This fruit tree only bore a single white fruit. That white fruit was the size of a fist and was crystal clear like a precious jade. There was a white mist circulating around it that emanated an extremely mysterious Daoist rhyme. This was one of the 10 great spiritual fruits that countless people dreamed of, the white spirit divine fruit. "I've finally found it." Jian Daozi walked out of the seal. He looked at the white spirit divine fruit in front of him with excitement. It looks like this white spirit divine fruit has fully ripened. In a flash, he covered his hands with a layer of spiritual power and was about to pick the white spirit divine fruit. However, at that moment, the white spirit divine fruit gently swayed. The spirit fruit automatically left the tree and flew in a certain direction. The sudden change made Jian Daozi's expression change. He quickly chased after the white spirit divine fruit. A sword qi shot towards him. The familiar aura made Jian Daozi shrink back. He too took out his long sword and swung it. The sword qi was so powerful that it was hard to defend against it. The moment Jian Daozi's sword and the sword qi intersected, a metallic sound was heard. However, he was forced back by several meters. "Such a sword qi, it's you." Jian Daozi's expression changed as he looked into the distance. He saw the white spirit divine fruit being led by an invisible mind power to the top of a mountain. There, a person held it in his hand and played with it. That person was dressed in white and had black hair. He was extremely handsome. It was none other than Chu Kuangren. "Why is it you? Why are you here?" Jian Daozi stared at Chu Kuangren, feeling extremely dissatisfied. The white spirit divine fruit that he had painstakingly found was taken away by someone else before he could even touch it. Jian Daozi was so angry that his eyes bulged. He glared at Chu Kuangren as if he wanted to kill Chu Kuangren with his gaze. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.